Welcome to the Selectmen's meeting, Town of Gulfstown, 22nd of October. We started the public meeting at 5:45 and immediately went into non-public for a couple of decisions under RSA 91A:3, Roman 2B, hiring.
And A, compensation.
Thank you. And A, paragraph A was compensation, those two issues. And
would you like a motion, Mr. Chair, with respect to those, the non-public?
why don't we do a pledge of allegiance
We'll do that first? Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If I could have a motion on the items we discussed.
Sure, I'll make the first one. I'd like to make a motion to accept the police chief's recommendation with respect to part-time hiring.
I'll second that motion.
We have a second.
And this is for just for clarity, this is for the replacement of, this is not in addition to, this is a replacement part-time position.
You want to do Gales or?
Any discussion? You may or may not have been aware of it.
No, I have no discussion on it.
Those in favor indicate saying aye.
Aye.
5-0 there. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And the compensation issue we brought up.
I'll make a motion that we make an adjustment to the compensation rate for the rate takers, is that?
Minute takers.
Minute takers.
Yeah.
As reflected.
Second that.
I believe we had the rate in public, didn't
Was-
we, in our previous motion?
I don't remember.
I wasn't here at
I
that time.
don't remember. That's why I didn't say it, so.
Okay, well, we discussed the rate adjustment. Yes,
Well,
Scott?
I mean, just for transparency's sake, we are going towards paying based upon the actual meeting itself, and the rate is going to be
$44.
$44 an hour, and that includes the attendance of the meeting and the transcription that follows.
It's
So it's based on the number of hours of a meeting. So a
Right.
1-hour meeting would be a $44 bill.
billable in quarter-hour segments.
Yes.
Well, just so that, when you talk about transparency, just so that it is fully transparent, because when you say to somebody at that rate, it sounds like an unbelievable rate, but we need to have explained what
Well,
that.
I can do that. I mean, typically, if you attend the meeting, for every hour that you're attending the meeting, it might be 2 to 3 hours on the back end transcribing
No,
it.
that's why I.
Sending out the meeting minutes to the participants, so in essence, it could take you more like 4 hours for one.
The explanation where I was going at, okay, when you say $44 an hour, if you just say that and leave it at that, it sounds like that's an unbelievable amount of money, but what you're saying is that it's $44 per hour for the public meeting portion, okay? Because a person then spends more time completing those minutes, additional time, so it's not that a person spends 6 hours and they get 6 hours times $44. They might be spending 6 hours, but 2 hours are in the public meeting, which would be $88, and the other 4 hours are included. Okay? So just so that, I don't want somebody trying to apply to the
Mark
town to
made the
get.
motion, and was
Hollis
there?
seconded.
Call a second. Any further discussion? Call for the vote then. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0, Catherine. Motion passes. Announcement, let's see, minutes from
We had deferred these last week.
Because you weren't here.
we had minutes of the 1st of October. They're in our packets from last week.
I knew there was a reason why I had it in that folder. I took it out. In the binder.
Motion to approve the October 1st public and non-public minutes.
I'll second.
Okay, any
Yeah,
changes necessary?
I have one question or comment more than anything really, I guess. It says the meeting was called to order at 5:42, and at 5:43 went into public session, non-public session, I should say. I arrived at 5:43 and walked into the room only to find that the discussion had already occurred and been wrapped up. I think when we place on the agenda, it's at 5:45, we should not start until 5:45. If someone's not here at 5:45, that's their own fault. But to start before the posted agenda time, wrap up the discussions, and I'm not able to participate, or any other member of the board, I don't think is correct. So I think we need to be a little bit more diligent about starting them on time so that every member of the board can be present if they so choose.
It's a good point, thank you for that. Comment. Okay, vote on the board, on the motion. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion to accept the October 2nd joint meeting minutes. That was between the Board of Selectmen and the school board.
And the minutes were recorded by the school board secretary. Second to the motion?
Second.
I'll wait for a second.
Mark seconded. Yes, discussion.
Is it the same set of minutes for the school board as we're gonna have for the Board of Selectmen?
Yes,
Has there been any changes by the school board to the minutes?
not yet.
Well, I understand, but I guess the question that I have is if we approve these minutes and the school board makes a change to the minutes, and technically, we need to revisit those.
Reconsider it, yes.
Right.
We
And the
can-
minute take us aware of that.
And vice versa, if we were to make a change, they would need to be aware of that, okay?
Okay, Thank you we'll take that in consideration.
Amended to say contingent upon the school board's acceptance of the minutes?
Yeah,
Would
wouldn't
that
hurt.
would that be better? Mr. Chair, can I amend my motion, if I may?
Yeah.
Approve the October 2nd joint meeting minutes between the school board and the Board of Selectmen contingent upon the school board's acceptance.
Mark, you agree?
Yes.
Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Please say aye. Aye, 5-0, okay. Okay, we're moving forward, and the minutes in our packet this evening from the meeting last Monday night, October 15th, meeting at which I was absent.
Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome.
I have a comment. It's not a correction because the minutes do reflect that. The minutes are accurate on the reflection of what was there, but there was a, earlier, what we approved earlier, the discussion about the minute taking, there was discussion of, I believe it was an email from somebody to a member of the board, and the minutes reflect that the minutes, that was gonna be forwarded to the rest of the board. In here, it's in the minutes, it reflects that there was an email received
Yeah.
by one selectman, and that selectman was gonna make sure that forward that. I don't have it in front of me exactly how it's worded. That's accurate, because that's what was reflected at the meeting, but the question is I never received those.
Did you check your Goffstown account?
Well, the point that I'm making is, I think if you look at the rules of procedure, those types of things that are disseminated to the other board members are through the town administrator.
Yeah, I did get a copy of it, and I did put it in each of your mail baskets.
Okay, well, it might
today.
be in there, but I
Okay.
just,
Yeah.
that's all.
In this case, it was
We got a paper copy.
distributed by the.
Well,
town
as
administrator.
of Sunday morning, when I picked up my packet, I didn't have it, is the point I'm making, so.
I had one minor correction.
Mhm.
It's on page 6, third paragraph down under Selectmen's discussion on committee reports for sewer. For the intermunicipal agreement with Manchester, not Will Manchester.
Correct.
I'm sorry, say it again?
With,
For the intermunicipal agreement
the
with.
word will becomes with.
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
something spell check wouldn't pick
Nope.
up.
No. Thank you.
I'll take a vote on the motion for the minutes of October 15th. Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0, Catherine. Announcements. And I'll do the first one on the supervisors of the checklist. Supervisors of the checklist will be at the town hall in session in the administration office, room 208, at Town Hall, 16 Main Street, on Saturday, this coming Saturday, October 27th, from 11 in the morning to 11:30, for the purpose of making corrections to the checklist for new voter registrations. Change of address and party affiliation changes can be made at this time. If a person is registering to vote, they need to bring a photo ID, proof of date of birth, and their residence address. Anyone not born in the United States must also bring proof of citizenship. And so that, Sue, that time was accurate.
Yes, half hour.
Okay, thank you. Once again, October 27th, this coming Saturday, 11 to 11:30. Supervisors of the checklist will be in the town hall.
I might add that handicap accessibility will be made available to the people if they do need it that day. The front door will be open, the ramp will be available to anybody who needs to get up to the office.
Does our police department representative want to take the next one?
Sure. We received a commendation to a crossing guard, Janet Kaza. And I'll read it if it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman. Okay. Dear Lieutenant Pouliot, this letter is to let you know that your employee, Janet Kaza, goes above and beyond in her duties as crossing guard for Bartlett Elementary School. Janet is so impressive. Our first day of school, Janet instructed everyone not to follow her into the street, but to wait to cross until she says all clear. She knows every child by name and greets us with a friendly smile and good morning every day. She is professional and takes her job very serious. She gets right out there in traffic and is clear in and concise in her directions of both traffic and persons waiting to cross the street. I know this may seem like just part of the job, but I have to tell you, on my 5-mile ride into work, I pass many other crossing guards and see they fail miserably in comparison to your valuable employee, Janet. There is an intersection on the corner of Elm and Queen City Bridge that is particularly dangerous, as I will often see cars blow through red lights in the morning rush. Every day, the 2 cross guards who stand in the same intersection corner let the kids follow them right out into the street. Janet is right out there putting her life on the line. Just last Thursday, in fact, she was in the middle of the crosswalk, and with the stop sign held up high and her visible bright yellow collars, and a car blew right past her. All of us in the crosswalk were safe because of Janet's rule of waiting for the all clear from her. I feel truly blessed and grateful that we have Janet at Bartlett School. She needs to be recognized as a really valuable employee. I would suggest she train every crossing guard to her professional standards and would be afraid to lose her. And it's sincerely C.J. Marks.
Well, Chief Salvin, good comments on one of our school crossing guards, and I'm sure that what the resident has observed for clearing the road before children are allowed to cross is something you want to make sure Lieutenant Pouliot has all his crossing guards do.
Any other announcements from board members? Town activities?
Next Wednesday, Halloween.
Is it that quick?
Yeah, no.
Well, now that you've brought it up, will the selectmen be handing out
Of course.
goodies here at Town Hall?
I'm planning to.
Okay, then we will buy the candy.
I enjoy doing that too. so.
Okay.
And for our newest selectmen, we're on the town hall steps from what hours?
6 to 8.
6 to 8?
Get to dress up though.
I'll be at Station 19 on Mass Road handing out candy.
Okay.
I'd be glad to help out.
And you'll be surprised to see there's probably 600 to 700 people will walk by the town hall that evening.
And then we're all set with the sidewalks, right? They'll be buttoned up for that night? Okay.
Carl's the record for eating candy. Phil has it. It's 34 pieces of candy. He usually, that was last year that he ate while
I thought we were
handing it
supposed to
out.
give it out.
You know.
Yeah, but
You know.
he really likes
he-
quick
he-
bars.
You just have to realize Scott has a tendency to exaggerate a little bit.
Really?
Just a tad.
Yeah, see that? At least he admits it. You know, the old saying, the person who says something about somebody else, it's usually what they do.
One for you, one for me.
Okay?
But
At this time in the agenda, we offer public comment. There are no persons here from the public, but were there, they could speak for 3 minutes on any item that's not on the agenda and bring their concerns to our attention. Moving along, Chief Sullivan, you have item we should consider concerning overnight travel.
Yes. The winter conference for the Chiefs Association is in the budget currently. It's 2 nights, 7th through the 9th, at the Grand Hotel in Conway, North Conway Grand Hotel.
This is for all the chiefs of police in
Yes.
New Hampshire.
Yes,
So certainly, it'd be good for you to attend.
yes. It's 303.03, and then there'd be taxes included in that.
motion to accept chief's attendance at the police chiefs conference.
Second.
Those in favor, indicate, saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Motion passes. Thank you, Chief. Carl, I know it's not 6:25, but are you ready? You have a busy agenda with the board this evening, road plan update, bids on a construction project, gravel plant screening, gravel pit screening, and a study by DOT on rail trail crossings. So, start in.
I provided you all, and I apologize for the microscopic text. I too now find that hard to deal with.
We all have glasses, no sweat.
I didn't come in earlier this summer for one of these updates because I kind of figured everybody was getting their weekly Mass Road blast, and that was pretty much all we were doing, so. However, now we do have several other projects that have been completed or are underway. So I did want to give the board a quick update on how we're progressing on the plan that you folks approved.
The
this season.
2012 road plan.
Yes. As you can see, prices have been quite favorable. The asphalt did not spike as high this year as it has the past couple of years. We did have some price adjustments that we paid, but nothing like what we were paying in the last couple of years, which has helped keep our projects kind of in line. So you can see, particularly for the 2 new selectmen, this spreadsheet is slightly different than the one you saw earlier this spring, in that now we're showing you what the actual cost of each of these jobs was and what the differential over the estimate. was. I guess the thing to report is there are two projects that we decided we probably had best defer and not do this season because we didn't get to them this summer. One being the South Mast Road shim, and the other being Maple Avenue overlay. Both of those projects revealed complications that were a little bigger than that we felt would take a little more time than just sending the pavers over there to overlay. And by the time we kind of got to them, we figured school was in session, and now the temperatures are getting such that a mill and overlay is not really something that we feel comfortable doing this late in the season. That being said, I guess what I want to address, because it hasn't really been publicly addressed, is the roundabout on South Mast. I'm sure you've noticed that the pavement is spalling in a couple of spots in that roundabout. That was a phenomena that we noticed pretty early on when the pavement was placed. Earlier this spring, the design consultant came back, and together with the materials research folks at DOT, we took some corings, some pavement corings. We had them analyzed, and I think what we have there is a compounding, not I think, all of the experts that have reviewed it concur that we have a compounding of issues there. First of all, the mix design for that roundabout, in hindsight, when that was designed, we didn't know as much about roundabouts as we do now.
The mix of the material
The
applied.
wear course pavement. So a new specification for a wear course of a roundabout would be a different mix than what we put down there. So that's problem one. It's just been recognized that mix design is not the most durable thing for heavy trucks making those kind of turns. If you remember, that pavement also went down very late in the season. It was a rush to kind of get it done before Thanksgiving and school and elections, and so it was not put down in the most favorable of conditions, which certainly had an impact. So, I think what we have, though I wish I could tell you we can point the finger at one source and say, aha, that was the problem. I think we have multiple things that all play against each other. Our conclusion is that what would be best would be to mill the surface off and reapply the proper mix, obviously under favorable conditions. I mean, it's just fine until next summer. But that really is what needs to be done. That needs to be milled off. And originally, we were thinking we'd just mill out the spots that have failed, but DOT and the design engineer's advice is go right outside the approaches and just do the whole thing. That way you don't have different materials in there, and you'd have the best likelihood of a successful surface.
Was there any concern about the thickness of the wear course besides the mix of the aggregates in there?
No. As a matter of fact, it met, the material itself met the spec that was put out to bid. It just wasn't the proper spec. Scott?
I think that the one question I think begs to be asked is, if this were, like, say, my own house or project, and I hired somebody to do something, and now 2 years later, something failed, are we stuck with this, paying for this mill and overlay, or is the contractor? Because it certainly wasn't the town's fault that, the contractor dragged their feet and we did this late into the year, because we were, as you recall, there were weeks on end that nothing was done. And then we were begging to get it done before, Thanksgiving, I believe, before the cold weather. So that wasn't the town's fault. And then if we're hiring consultants to tell us what type of mixture to put into a roundabout and they get it wrong, again, as the taxpayer, I'd be very upset that I have to pay for it out of my own pocket now, because two entities, one, we paid good money, to the contractor who put it down, and maybe they put it down late in the season, but that wasn't our fault. And secondly, if we're relying on people to tell us this is what should be put down, I mean, this isn't the first roundabout that's ever been built in the United States. I mean, I'm concerned that here we are, we're going to, expend, $10,000-$20,000 to mill and overlay this thing again, not to mention the traffic that you're gonna have for the few days that it's being done, and it's the town's cost. So is there any assistance we're gonna get from either, do we hold a bond at all on this, or has that been released, or what's the deal with that?
This discussion details would probably be best served in non-public, because as you will know, this thing is always on the edge of legal. I can tell you there are some cost-sharing remedies. The bond is just a maintenance bond, but where the material was put down as per spec, I'm not sure that we could exercise that.
And who spec'd it? Was it our designer, our design engineer that was that a contracted service that spec'd it?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But you said these were new specs from DOT. When did the new specs come out? After we had already?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean, it gets complicated. We can certainly have those discussions. I would just rather not have them.
No, I agree.
Forum, I think it'd be better to, and there's no rush, there's no rush to resolve who pays for what. It does factor into the project, because I think if we're gonna do South Mass, we should take care of the roundabout while we're right there.
You're bringing up this under a review of this year's road plan. Does that mean you're considering doing it?
We
right
were.
this fall?
No, we were considering it this summer, but again, Mass Road just took much longer than we
So
anticipated. It'll be
You're
next summer
considering
now.
next summer when school is out?
Yeah.
I had one question.
Go ahead.
And did we give the okay to place it at the time of year that it was placed?
Yes. Under,
Duress.
our backs were up against the wall to conclude that project for a number of reasons that as Scott mentioned, it dragged on much longer than
I know.
residents and the selectmen wanted it to.
But I recall, I don't think, maybe we'll discuss this in non-public. I don't wanna, if it has
Right.
legal ramifications, I don't
Yeah.
wanna get into it, but.
Yeah. As far as our other projects on the list, I'm quite happy to report they've all gone very well. As you can see, financially, we've performed well. The one suggestion that we have, and this is kind of a last-minute thing, but we have gotten a tremendous number of complaints this summer on Locust Hill Road. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Locust Hill Road. With the budget cut that we had this year, obviously, the whole road plan shifted. Locust Hill Road shifted even further out. I don't anticipate full funding next year, so Locust Hill will shift even further out. What we are proposing, we've looked at kind of a Band-Aid approach like we did on Tibbetts Hill Road, where we could go in. If you drive on Locust Hill Road, there are two sections under the power lines, basically, that are just horrendous. And for about $30,000, we could mill those two sections, and just like we did on Tibbetts Hill, we could just mill those spots, base pave them in. If that's all we get done, it's 100% improvement over what's there today. I've carried enough money to then turn around and shim the rest of the road, because it literally is 8 or 9 years out from today at least.
Scott, picking up on that?
Yeah, I just want to comment, I live off of Tibbetts Hill Road. I wouldn't even call that a Band-Aid, because the drainage work that you did in that very small area, and then you did, you basically reclaimed a very small portion and then overlaid the rest, it has held up extremely well, as if the whole road was almost reclaimed. There are no frost heaves, and I think that's due to the fact that you did a tremendous amount of work on the drainage and on the shoulders. So I think that's where we have to start thinking about, in the future, is can we do this type of, repairs to our roads, maybe not doing the whole thing, I don't know if I call it a Band-Aid, because I think it's been, I'm just so impressed with what you did on that road. You did it in a very short period of time, and it's held up incredibly well. So, I think we could do the same thing on Locust Hill, which, that road is in horrific shape. I agree with you, it is really bad. Then I'd be all in favor of that.
I just have a comment.
Bill?
Yeah, the only thing, though, that I would be cautious on is, I understand, I've been on Tibbetts Hill quite a bit on that, but I would be cautious as to take that as the method to go with, because I think Carl's point about being a Band-Aid, it's only a small portion of the entire road. And that shows you how crucial drainage is to the road. But as you expand to the other sections, I think we need to just go cautiously. And some of them will be Band-Aids, even though they seem.
So, Carl, you have an estimated cost for the road plan to do that project, and that cost is sufficient for the limited reclaim and,
What you're looking at there, the 118 would be from Page Hill to Center Street shim, with reclaiming those about 1,100, 1,200 feet of the really bad areas. We are on Leach Hill now. We hope to be completely out of East Dunbarton. If they didn't finish it today, it's gonna be very shortly. We hope to pave Leach Hill, if Wednesday does not rain too bad, Friday. So we're moving through those projects pretty quickly. So we could potentially move a crew sometime towards the latter part of this week into Locust Hill and start installing some drainage.
So in this form, what's the cost of Locust Hill? I don't see it.
118.
It is 118, okay.
Yeah.
Scott again?
Okay, just backing up a bit. If putting down pavement in colder weather potentially may compromise its durability in latter years, is there a certain time, so here we are, we're going ahead with Locust and we're doing this, but now we'll be looking at the same situation. We'll be looking at a pre-Thanksgiving potential of paving Locust Hill. Is that something that we should be doing?
Well, when I say Band-Aid, if a pavement engineer walked up to Locust Hill, they would not consider that an overlay. When we do like South Mass, where you're gonna mill and put a new wear course,
Yeah.
the integrity of the pavement underneath is structurally sound. So you're literally, it's like painting your house. You're putting a new wear course. Locust Hill, there's not enough good pavement to bond new pavement to, so the crack's gonna reflect right up through. I would submit to you that Tibbetts, one of the saving graces we've seen on Tibbetts is last winter was a very mild winter. So it really hasn't gone through too many really, really harsh seasons. So when I say shim on Locust Hill, it's a shim.
Right.
I don't expect it to last 15 or 20 years. I expect it to last 7 or 8 years until we can get out there and really fix Locust Hill correctly. So that's why I'm less.
Okay, optimistic on that
Yeah.
one. Okay.
Yeah. But, unfortunately, sometimes we just really have no choice.
No, I understand that.
Those are the two projects you're continuing to work on for the remainder of this year on this road plan? Are there others you want to bring to our attention?
Well, yeah, we have it listed later, but we might as well talk about it now. Two of the items under other at the bottom of this list were the wing walls on West Union Street and the replacement of the fallen-in section on Walnut Hill culvert. As you can see, we had estimated those projects to be about $80,000 worth. The low bid, we received two bids, the low bid was $177,000. We've gone back, now that we have our permits in place and, the design is final and everything's good. We did a materials takeoff, and for us to do that project, the materials cost is about $50,000. there's really no rush other than, we gotta replace them before, before they completely fall in, but it could be a winter project, it could be a next summer project, it could even be a couple of summers from now or next winter. So I certainly am not inclined to award a bid that we know is very, very high for something that really, it's off the road, fairly straightforward. We have the permits. So what I'm asking the board to consider doing is just rejecting the bids completely for those two projects, and we would just make them an in-house project. Buy the materials, have them around, so that if we have a window of opportunity where we could jump in there and do those projects, we could get them done.
Yes. Carlos?
And Carl, any thoughts as to why the bids came in so high?
Not,
Small jobs, are they too small
One-
for most guys, and they,
yeah,
open demo is,
the one contractor that was coming from away, that's what he told us, is we had limited mob and demob in the bid. It's way higher than mob and demob though. But that was what he spread his mob demob throughout the bid. The other bidder was in town on another job, so he's here, was kind of threw the fishing line in the water hoping he'd get this before he left. But I kind of just consider it's those, contractors will just throw a number at the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
I think we got two of those, and we didn't get somebody that really
Nobody was
went at it with a sharp pencil that wanted the job real bad, so.
On the West Union Street the wing wall, you estimated 72,000. I'm not sure if I can follow the fine print left to right here, but you have an actual cost of 50?
Yeah, that's the most significant of the two from a cost perspective, and the
I mean, what was, actual cost means you've already accomplished work.
actual cost is buying the materials. And for instance, the materials for that wall, just the materials are about 30,000. And then, some smaller things like pavement.
Okay, this was, the material was gonna be provided to the contractor. That's why you've already bought it?
No, we haven't bought it yet. We haven't bought it yet.
Okay.
We just
I'm
have
confused because it says actual cost.
Right,
Yeah.
no, I can cut a PO tomorrow and have these materials delivered this week if I wanted to. I mean, we've got updated cost estimates.
Actual, I'm sorry, I was interpreting actual cost as something we've already spent.
Already expended, yeah.
No.
Any further discussion?
Scott has a
Carl will proceed on the road plan as he discussed.
Well, I just want to make it clear here. So for those two projects, we had budgeted $82,000, and the low bid that we had received was $177,975. So it wasn't even close. So the only options that we have are to rebid or to proceed with having our town folks, our staff.
Public Works.
Public Works Department do that. It is, so what we're saying is that it's not, it's off the road, so there's not any type of traffic type of issues. Mobilization is not a big issue for us because it's town resources, and you're saying that you think you can do this in the course of just winter type of work. Is that fair enough to say?
The permits, it's gotta be low flow.
Right.
Winter qualifies as low flow.
Right.
One of the wing walls on West Union is so close that it would involve taking a lane of traffic. So that would be restricted.
Okay.
But it's one-way traffic down there, and
It-
I don't think it'd be the end of the world.
It's posted for not through on one direction, so that reduces the flow, potential flow. Well, Carl's gonna proceed with the plan as he discussed it with us,
I think we should take a motion on this
Yeah.
stuff. I really do.
then go ahead and make a motion.
I'll make a motion that we allow the Department of Public Works Director to
We have
proceed.
to reject the bids
Oh, yeah,
first.
okay. Motion to formally reject the two bids received with respect to the West Union Street wing wall and the Walnut Hill Road culvert repairs.
Second.
In favor of that motion, indicate.
Aye.
Aye. Yeah,
Then
motion
a
passes.
motion to direct the DPW director to proceed with utilizing town DPW resources to replace the wing wall at West Union Street and to, again, repair the Walnut Hill culvert with material purchases not to exceed, what, $60,000? Is that what you have? Okay.
Second.
And this will be a winter project for your department,
Or next summer, I mean, it's,
so materials would be bought and stored.
yeah, we would probably get the blocks so we have them in sight, so we can move in anytime where we have a window.
Window of weather. Okay. Those in favor of the motion concerning the revised road plan?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And last but not least, is the board supportive of the Locust Hill plan as well? Sounds like a better motion.
Make a motion that to direct the DPW director to proceed with his recommendation with respect to repairs to Locust Hill Road.
Second.
Those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Motion passes. We're, the gravel pit that you have at your Public Works yard, you want to discuss a screening plant.
Yeah, just by way of background, for the past several years, probably as long as we've been doing the road plan, we typically rent a screener over the course of the winter. And it varies how long we rent it for, depending on how much material we have down there to sift. We use it mostly for our winter sand and loam type material. We have in CIP, and the CIP committee moved it out to 2014, but there's $120,000 in 2014 for us to purchase a screen for the pit. The idea being that we will begin to excavate
Right.
and build towards the Parks and Recreation plan for those ball fields. We were presented with an opportunity, and again, several years ago, we used this approach when we got our first excavator. And some folks thought that was a little dubious, so I want to be right up front, you know, why we're doing this, what we're doing. This is just a discussion. I don't even have a contract or anything to show you tonight. I'll pass this around, but we found a used screen. It's a 2003, and it's very similar to what we have in the budget for 2014. Chadwick and Bayross is who we worked with the excavator as well. We also have a credit currently with Chadwick and Bayross, $5,000 credit. I don't remember why, but probably a month rental on one of our machines for some reason. What we could do, if the board is amenable to it, what we discussed with Chadwick is we could rent the thing for like 6 months, sign a rental agreement right now, say, we're gonna rent that for 6 months. And then next spring, if it's working for us and it's a good piece of equipment, do another 6-month rental. At the end of that, we would owe very little money towards purchasing it outright. And I don't know the exact number. You can see that they want $39,000 for that. But they need to bring it down from Bangor. There's certainly some cost involved in moving their thing down here to our site. But if the board is amenable to us proceeding with this, I would get something from them, an actual proposal from them. It's not binding us, because we can just, nope, 6 months, we don't have the money, we don't want it, whatever, we just walk away, and it becomes just that, a rental. However, if it's doing the job for us, It's a rather inexpensive way to get a screening plant and saves us having to buy one in the future if we want to continue to work on that pit. The one caution that I want to make sure everybody understands is this is not a high-capacity screening plant. So if Rick Wilhelmy's $1 million donor suddenly dropped out of the sky and said, we want to build this whole thing tomorrow, that's not the screening plant that would allow us to get that done. For how we would use it, you know, poking away here and there, and as we needed material, it would work great. Be very versatile for us.
Yes, Scott?
Is we rent a screener. Is that the same screener that we would typically rent?
Yes.
And what do we spend per year renting the screener?
Again, it depends how long.
Well,
If we
typically
rented
what-
it, typically anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000.
Okay.
So depending on if we have it for a couple of weeks, or if we have
And
it
this is
for-
the material that we then use for town projects such as shoulders or reclamation of roads. We use the material rather than buying it.
You can
because
screen,
we're-
you can screen rocks from sand, and you can screen rocks from loam.
Well, I just raised the point, Mr. Chair, simply because the town purchased a piece of property with the intent of excavating the materials for use, and that was the whole reason why we did that, was for two purposes. One, we would use the materials on site for our road projects rather than buying it. And two, when we reclaimed the pit, it would be used for ball fields. So I think it kind of fits into that.
Work at our convenience is more efficient.
Right, and it was, I think we talked about it was gonna be a 10
2-week
to
burst.
20-year
Right.
staggered
You
approach.
got a
so.
point?
No, just a question. The material that we have crushed, you know, the concrete and the asphalt that we have crushed, does that get screened?
Yeah, when the crusher has a screening plant attached to it, so they screen it 2 different sizes for us.
Different process from what
yeah.
you're discussing
Okay,
here.
but this would not have anything to do with that?
No, other than if we needed to alter that material, you know, if we needed a finer material,
Right.
we would have our own
You
plant.
take the output of the crusher, which
Yeah.
is sorted to some degree, but you could resort it again.
Right.
This rental has different screens that come with it?
Yeah, I'm not real clear on which screens we get, but the company still makes them, so we could certainly get.
So, at this point, you would probably want the board to say, do your research and bring a bid back?
Yeah, if the board is amenable to the concept, I'll come back with a written proposal, so we know exactly what we're getting into.
Okay.
Scott?
Collis was first.
Sorry.
Carl, if you look at the cost, the 6-month lease, you break it down per month, how does that compare to a monthly rental? Is it equitable?
Yeah,
It is
it would be cheaper than what we've paid, but we've never rented it for 6
For
months
6
either.
months,
so
right.
it's-
It's been very short projects.
Yeah, usually
But
it's,
assuming we were to use it.
Two-week,
on a
three-week
monthly-
project.
yes, it
It's
would
a
be a
wash.
very reasonable monthly rent.
When we purchased the Barnard property, there was a significant amount of materials, as we know, on the property. Is there the potential for us to sell these materials to local contractors? In the sense that not only would they pay for the screener, but they would also help our revenues in the sense that if they're local contractors, whether it be folks like John Neville, et cetera, they don't have to go and get their material from another place. They can get it from us. Or we, in our bids, let's say we have a project, we can say the materials are at DPW, all you have to do is pick them up, and then that would help our bid price. Because I'm trying to get back to what we talked about before, where we had a significant amount of materials,
Okay, Kevin.
and we could make, we can hopefully make some money off this.
Collis, you have a point?
Well, I mean, I don't want to, I think that warrants further discussion. I mean, I don't want to be selling off materials that we've got use for in 5, 10 years out. I mean, that, I think would be, counterproductive
Thank you.
to where we want to end up.
I have a bit of heartburn with going in competition with commercial gravel sources.
But you don't have any heartburn going, taking away a screener's ability to, I'm not,
We're renting to buy. No, that's different.
oh, okay.
Sue has a comment.
Don't we need a lot of that material to reclaim the old Perry property?
You know, again, it all comes down to how quickly do we have to do it. We're using our bark mulch to reclaim the property. So if we have years to reclaim the property, we'll be just fine. We don't have to buy anything. We just, as we grind brush and make our rough compost, we've kind of been spreading it over there in the pit. If somebody suddenly dropped out of the sky and said, we want ball fields there in 3 months, then we'd have to buy a bunch of material and it would cost a bunch of money. But the way we're doing it now, it's just time. We
And
have the material.
the old former Perry property that we're talking about, you would need a long-range plan saying at what elevation that has to be brought up to.
Yeah, and we,
To be a suitable ball field in relation to other ball fields that, or other facilities that the town would want built there.
yeah, and we have that plan. You know, we have, I'm sure the board has seen the master plan. What we need to do now is start working with DES to get a reclamation permit. And that will help us determine what those elevations are. You know, the water table will determine what those elevations can be.
Fits into the point you just made, so knowing the elevation to fill in the former Perry property.
Yeah, and then, if I may.
Yes.
That was identified in the conceptual plan, as the next phase was to identify the final contours and final grading of the plan, of the property, I mean.
Yeah.
Scott again.
I just had some additional questions with respect to the road program. So what we did was we allocated 100 and, I think it was 18,000 for the Locust Hill. All right, and then we also allocated about $60,000 in materials for the wing wall and the culvert on Walnut Hill. Okay, so that's 100 and, let's just round numbers, 180,000. Are you planning on encumbering the monies for Maple Avenue that were not, that's your plan?
Whatever is left, yes.
Okay, so the rest would be encumbered for Maple Avenue and I believe that was, and South Mast.
Yep.
Those were the two projects that would be encumbered for next year.
Yep.
All right. The reason why I bring this up is that, you know, I think maybe we take a different approach. Last week, when you were in here, we talked about the road program. And we talked about, what was it, 1 million to 1.5, but we kind of talked about that. And maybe we need to rethink this and say, let's talk about what roads we're going to do, how we're going to do those roads, as opposed to let's just spend X amount of dollars. Because, and I understand that the notion of that, you know, yep, the more dollars we have, the more roads we can reclaim and rebuild, et cetera. But maybe we need to look at it differently and say, okay, we know that we have 1 million to 1.5 that the board is kind of supporting, but maybe that number will be more towards the 1 million as opposed to the 1.5 if we strategically kind of pinpoint what roads we're going to do, how we're going to do them. I say that because I take a look at Addison Road. We were looking at, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought the number was like in excess of $1.5 million, I think, to reclaim the entire Addison Road. And you did about a third of it so far. But you did that for far less money than $600,000 because it was town resources that were doing a lot of the prep work for that. So I think we just need to have a little discussion as to, you know, what can we do with the limited resources that we have over the next couple of years, and how do we accomplish our goals of getting our roads where we want them to be, but maybe not doing it as total reclaims and stretching the dollars as best we can, rather than just saying, oh, it's $1 million, you know, or 1.5. I don't know if everybody else feels the same way, but
On the other side, this board's discussed that a road plan, as originally planned, would be spending $2 million or $2.5 million a year for infrastructure improvement year in and year out. And the fact that it's been considerably less over the last recent few years. This board has typically asked, we put a certain amount of money towards a road plan, and then we ask Public Works to present us a formal list of all the roads that would be accomplished, typically in about 2 weeks after our new board's been elected. That's how I recall it's been done in the last 3 years. By that time, you've had a good idea of exactly how you want to spend that money, and you've put together a well-reasoned plan. I think putting together a plan 6 months earlier leaves room for too many changes. But, I don't want to, I feel uncomfortable making you make a commitment on a road plan this early.
Well, I mean, let's face it, the road, I know what the roads are next year. I mean, we already have a pretty good feel. A bunch of them are right in front of you, and there was a bunch we cut off earlier this year when the funding was cut, so those all rolled. So we kinda already have next year's list. The big decisions come with how much funding do we have? If we end up next year with another $500,000 or $1 million, then we're gonna sit and cut the list even more. I've always hesitated to say exactly what roads ahead of time, because if you don't live on one of those roads, why would you vote yes?
Yes.
That's always been my concern.
I was gonna bring that out. That's always a wise way of proceeding too, but Scott,
I
again?
guess I used to think that way, but I think a lot of the voters are big boys and big girls, and they understand that one year it's gonna be their road and the other year it's not. I mean, there are folks who don't have kids at the Bartlett school, but yet they fully are aware that school needs to, have some repairs. So I guess I was just looking at it from a different angle, whereby if we take a look at what we just talked about tonight, where we have Locust Hill, where we know that if in a perfect world we reclaim it, it would probably cost us over $1 million to do it, but we're gonna do this Band-Aid approach and it'll be $114,000. And we knew that Addison was gonna be, I thought the quote was over $1.5 million, and we did a third of it for a lot less than what 1/3 of, 600,000 or so. So it would be, I think it would be easier to to have a conversation with the voters to say, okay, we put in somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million for our roads, and here's how we planned on doing it. Yes, this particular road, let's use Warren Avenue in Bernardville. I think that was the one that we had cut. Well, it cost X amount of dollars, and here's what it's gonna cost to do that road. I just don't, I think the voters are pretty, they kinda understand. I mean.
I'm going to call a halt to the road plan, because that's a budget question. We've covered his immediate changes that need to be done this fall, and in another minute, we have a scheduled public hearing.
I have a question, since Carl is here, and if it's gonna be something that needs more discussion, perhaps we could have it another time. But in the FYI folder is a report on the Henry Bridge, DOT report,
Oh, yeah.
okay? I read the report, and there were a few things. There's one of the feet or supports that are underneath that has a spalling that's out underneath it. But the reason why I bring it up is that is a very, very important bridge, because we have two crossings of the river in town, the Main Street Bridge and Henry Bridge. And when that bridge was redone, and that current bridge, the Board of Selectmen at that time increased the load capacity, so that if something were to happen, thinking when we do Main Street, we could redirect the traffic and that bridge could take the load. And I just, perhaps at some point, maybe we should just have, if it's something that we should have a discussion, just so that we're aware, we all are on the same page as to what it needs, because my concern is, I don't want that bridge to get to the point where all of a sudden we have a lot of problems, and I just want to make sure if it's something to address, let's address it and keep on top of it. It's a very important bridge.
And quickly wrapping that up, I believe I know what the report was. That was an assessment of the Henry Bridge Road bridge.
Right.
But it didn't specify work that needed to be done.
No, to me, when the bridge inspectors
It
came down.
identified some problems.
Yes.
Right.
And when they were there, they actually called us to go down and review with them there, so they pointed those out. Of course, they still write them up, but there are some things we have to take care of. But we have a great relationship with them. They brought us down, showed us what the issues were, and it's just a case of us getting it in the schedule to deal with.
So, I think, Phil, your point is, the saying, a stitch in time saves nine.
Well, I want to make sure,
Yeah.
but everybody's aware of the importance of the bridge, okay? And I want to make sure it's not something that, falls by the wayside, and all of a sudden, 3 years down the road, we have a problem. That's all.
Carl, 7 o'clock, and I'd like to go into a public hearing for acceptance of a grant because it's been posted to be held at 7 o'clock, and you still have 2 items to go. A state highway review of a rail trail grant, and is the last one Pleasant Street project,
Yes.
coordination with the village water. Could you delay those
Oh,
discussions
absolutely.
for 10 or 15 minutes?
Absolutely.
So I'd like to proceed into the 7 o'clock scheduled public hearing, our agenda item number 7. And the notice that was in the Union Leader, 15th of October, page B5. Legal, the notice was, Board of Selectmen will conduct a public hearing under RSA 31:95-B today, 22nd of October, at the Town Hall to accept and expend $19,968 from the Bureau of Trails for a rail trail development. And as Mark pointed out, any person, as usual, any person who wished to attend the public hearing and make comment, if they have a disability and need reasonable accommodation, they call ahead. Extension 100 here at the Town Hall, and in advance 72 hours, and we can ensure that the elevator, the stair lift for the stairs was operational. So it is 4 minutes past 7, Catherine. We'll open the public hearing and have discussion about what the grant application is. Is that grant in our packet?
No, it's not.
Okay. It was in the, I saw it somewhere in the signature
Finished folder?
folder.
Right.
Would you like us to get that for you?
Please, so I just need to
Yeah, okay.
make sure I'm correctly referencing it. The town submitted an application for a recreational trails program. Oh, I'll wait for the minute taker. I sent her out of the room. I was gonna read a couple sentences when you need to get back. Background on this grant. The town submitted an application for a 2012 grant from the Bureau of Trails, New Hampshire Bureau of Trails, under their recreational trails program. It was a grant to improve the immediate vicinity of the public crossings of the rail trail at 5 different locations, and most significantly put trailhead parking in at Moose Club Park Road. This board approved the submission of the application. The state has approved that grant application, and then we now have this evening the acceptance of the contract, or the acceptance of the grant. And it's the amount of money I mentioned is the 80% portion made available from the Bureau of Trails. I'm trying to find a reference to that. Here it is. It was the $19,968 $968. That's 80%, or up to 80% of what the project could cost. The town is matching that pledge with $13,075. That $13,075 comes from two different categories. One is $8,000 that was contributed from a developer as off-site improvements, and $5,075 as in-kind contributions for some minimal work that's being performed by Public Works. So the total project for the 5 trailheads and some several hundred yards of drainage work that would be performed by Public Works, the total project is estimated to be done for $33,000. So that's the background on the grant application, and the state is offering us $19,968. Any discussion by board members? It is public hearing. Couple people here from the public, but for different subject size. And for the record, it's State Grant 2012-014. And board's happy with what I mentioned then?
All things for Public Works to do.
They're a small portion of the overall $33,000. Once again, I'm personally in favor of accepting this, so I'll put the, is there a motion?
Close the public
Close the
hearing.
public hearing.
Oh, excuse me. Protocol. Yes, okay. No comment. Close the public hearing, Catherine, at 7:09, please.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm prepared to make the motion.
Please.
To accept and expend $19,968 from the Bureau of Trails at DOT for the rail trail development, grant number 2012-014.
Question before we second that. We're actually going to expend the $8,000 of grant developer money. Is that Sue, does that calculate into the expenditure portion?
It does, but that was not noticed.
So,
Okay.
Tonight, you're just accepting the $19,968.
And that's accepting the grant, and then,
So that motion needs to be changed.
no?
No.
To accept and
He's
expend.
Still expecting that grant.
No, only to accept, not to expend.
You can accept and expend this grant amount.
Oh, we can?
Yes.
yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
And if that motion could indicate that we also authorize the project manager, who is the Don Bora, to sign the contract.
So he's the grant administrator.
He's the grant administrator.
Yeah, amend the motion to include that.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mark. Those in favor of the motion on the recreational trails grant indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's 5-0, Catherine. We finished with our public hearing at 7, so Carl.
The next item I had is also related to the rail trail, a different grant. It's our transportation enhancement grant. I think the board in their packet has DOT's comments tonight, is that
It's a letter dated 1 October.
We went up to DOT and we had a meeting with folks from the Bureau of Traffic and the Rail Bureau, or the Trail Bureau, and the Safety Bureau, I think, as well as Planning and Community Design. After reviewing the traffic counts and the plan as put forward by the town through its consultant, DOT has reservations about just a warning light and leaving it up to the pedestrians to fend for themselves to get across that that right of way. What they're recommending is a new signal called a Hawk. Just for the board's reference, what we had put forward was just something like this, and it was going to be the pedestrian could push the button. It would be a warning light that would flash, warning motorists that, hey, somebody's around here, but the cars wouldn't have had to stop. It was just more of a feel-good thing. Everybody kind of had concerns over that because people are accustomed to pushing the button and being able to get the right of way. I don't have a really good picture of what this Hawk design looks like other than what is in the MUTCD. And this is hard to see, but it's there would be two little signal heads facing traffic. When somebody pushed the button, it would begin to flash yellow, and then it would begin to flash. Actually, this is kind of complicated. Actually, here's a good picture. I'll pass this around. You can see what it looks like. And then this, I can pass this around, you can see it too, but when a pedestrian pushes the button, yellow would begin to flash, warning motorists that something's going on. It would become a steady yellow, and then it would go to a steady red. Traffic would stop. Once traffic stopped, a ped crossing would light, allowing somebody crossing the trail to cross. So it would be a crosswalk. Before that releases, it's a rapid flashing red beacon that warns everybody, warns motorists that, okay, it's changing again. And then when it's not in use, it's just a dark black signal. There would be a painted crosswalk, which all of this, by the way, goes contrary to what the board had voted a while back, which is why I'm here revisiting this issue.
Not the latter part, the board did endorse a painted crosswalk, or a crosswalk. The board asked for a durable crosswalk, but
Right.
yeah. Painted, the stripes on the asphalt is what they were referring to.
Right. So, kind of the quandary we find ourselves in today is there's a couple of them. This installation is what DOT would be more comfortable with. Our design engineer would be much more comfortable with this. I think from a pedestrian safety and motorist safety point of view, this is a better situation for the town to get into. The concern is stopping the amount of cars that are on Mass Road. What we discussed today is you can program this so that you couldn't have, you wouldn't have a kid push the button, run across, 20 seconds later another kid come push the button, run across. There could be a phasing where it only goes every 3 minutes, or it only goes to give the queue of cars that have stopped a chance to get through before it stops again. So that's all part of this design. It's all part of the phasing. The other concerns are this is more costly than what we originally planned on doing. There was not a good consensus on how much more costly. We heard numbers of anywhere from 10,000 to 20,000 per crossing. DOT is working on finding additional grant funding. but they aren't able to make us any promises. They have a pot of money they need to dig around and pot and see if there's any other project coming in under. And the federal legislation has just been approved, and they're not clear on what kind of strings will be attached to new money that comes along. So they're working their end. From our end, we need to make a decision, do we want to move forward with this or not? And potentially at risk of the town's share
So
being
if I can,
higher.
if I can step back, the town has accepted a 2010 grant, transportation enhancement. There are, if I can say, 4 phases to the whole project: engineering study, and that's what we're still in, the
Right.
very first phase. We haven't been approved to go out of the engineering study.
Right.
Then you have preliminary design, final design, and construction.
Correct.
So this is a review and discussion and decision this evening to facilitate getting through the engineering study phase. Transportation, Department of Transportation, analysis of our traffic flow. They're very concerned about pedestrian safety. They do want stripes put on the asphalt indicating a crosswalk location, and they want the traffic to stop while a person is crossing. And that brings us to a decision point, because in a previous board meeting on the 2nd of May, 2011, the motion was direct the DPW director to work with the design consultant for 2 things. A durable crosswalk, that refers to the material put on the asphalt, with a motion-activated flashing yellow warning strobe. And that was referring to a light system that's on a pole on the shoulder of either road. Typically, the pole that would be having the yellow signs with the little iconic bicycle or walking pedestrian.
Right.
But the light would only be on the shoulders of the road. DOT is more concerned about now the safety of the pedestrian, and they're advising you that the only way to achieve that degree of safety that they would like is with traffic coming to a halt. A version. I call it a cousin of a stoplight.
Yeah.
It's just that there's no green. It's dock when it's free-flowing. If we were to, number one, modify that motion, if board so agrees, then we have to tackle the cost. Putting up a substantial pole on the left and right of the crossing with either mast arms or a support wire is much more expensive, as you indicated, than a small pole on either side of the road.
Right.
And that causes the project to be more expensive by anywhere from $10,000 to $30,000 to $40,000 per crossing.
Yeah. And, hopefully in the next few days, we'll have a detailed estimate. There's a bid that just was awarded in Vermont to build one of these up in Burlington.
Well, there are, I'm aware that there's probably 3 or 4 options that you could bring back to the board to address the funding source, but I think we want you to understand what, funding, to accomplish the funding for the project. But in the meantime, we need to give a clear direction from this board what we will allow in the design. 'Cause right now, we have hamstrung you in that design.
Right.
And the state essentially has said in the meeting this morning, if you want this federal grant in the building of a trail, you're gonna have to allow traffic to stop on the state highway.
Yeah. Obviously, from, financially, to get the project completed, there are just several options. One, the probably most favorable option is DOT finds additional funds for whatever the estimate comes in, that it'll cost X more. We still have a 20% match, so we would have an
Here's
amount
the
of
rub
money
on
that
that.
would-
They could find extra money, but the town has to find a 20% match.
Right, right. So, as I worked through this problem in my brain, trying to anticipate where the board would be, I tried to think of, the decision we need tonight now is, do we keep the project moving forward? Can we get over the hurdle of the board's vote last year, and change that in concept to move forward, dealing with the financial aspect in another way? My fail-safe, if we were in a position where the additional money could not be found, DOT does not have additional grant money, and let's just use a $50,000 or $60,000 number that this would cost above and beyond the grant. There is some very large portions of work, the most significant of which is moving fill, cutting down the corner by the Irving Station on Henry Bridge and filling in the old Henry Bridge, the gully of Old Henry. There's about 1,000 yards of material that have to be excavated from the corner and moved to fill in, put some drainage in, a sleeve for the Grassmere Water Precinct pipe. So there's a significant amount of work in the estimate right there that we could do ourselves. Again, over the winter, we could put machines in there. That is completely off the road. It wouldn't involve getting into the road at all. So that would be a excavator and a couple of trucks and a loader or a dozer, and we could do that, removing it from the scope of the project, and then the grant money that we have would be used to buy hardware and lights and conduit and that kind of stuff, and we wouldn't use grant money to move earth.
Well, there's a lot of details in that proposal you just indicated beyond that. There's easement negotiations that have to be done first, and materials to buy after that, and that takes money to be approved. Right. So I'm glad that you're thinking about how the project could stay within the scope of the money available and yet get everything done. Because the other option is you downsize the expectations of the project in order to use the money available. So, Mark, you had a point, and then Phil.
The study that was completed, Carl, prior to my getting onto this board, was any consideration given, or any of the considerations or thoughts given to the pedestrians when, let's say, the police cruisers come by, the fire trucks come by with the Opticom systems? How would that warn people that they need to stop as well as fire apparatus and police cruisers and stuff like that?
These signals do work with Opticom.
Yes.
And what would happen is you essentially, I would think it's an ideal situation, because if there's a pedestrian in the walk, traffic's already stopped. So the emergency apparatus approaching the light would change, the sirens would be blaring. Whoever's walking across the street, I would think, would get to a gallop pretty quickly.
Okay.
And then, you'd have kind of the middle open to.
I just want to make sure that was considered in the plan as well, that we have some sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, this Hawk beacon lights that Carl passed around the handout on, it can be modified to accept the Opticon system
Okay.
used by the fire department. And Phil, and then
Well, the concern that I had was, we had quite a bit of discussion as to stopping the traffic on Mass Road. And that's why we went with our suggestion. And now, what we're hearing is that they don't like our suggestion, and they want us to stop the traffic on Mass Road, so I guess that's a concern, because we have a couple of the crossings. I understand you could, they could be timed, so once the signal is, the traffic is stopped, there's a certain time before it can reset and stop the traffic again. But then again, I mean, what is we haven't had a discussion as to how many people we anticipate going through these. And I'm just wondering if that's going to become a problem.
That, we discussed that today, because that's more of a planning study. I mean, we have no way to, you can't evaluate the number of users of the trail today and expect that that's what we'll see. There are a couple of very significant things ongoing right now that are gonna affect how many users we have. One is the new trestle over the river connecting Manchester's trail to this trail. Once that is completed, that is certainly gonna increase our usership. And then, of course, there's the whole, if we have safe crossings and Manchester is connected, how many people will use it? And there are methods, and part of what VHB is gonna be doing to address the comments in the letter that DOT raised is addressing that, coming up with some estimates of what we expect to see, because it's all part of the warrant, and meeting the warrant to do the signal heads.
You used the word warrant, but in a fashion,
Yeah.
the viewers might not be, the warrant in your words means, in order to, there's a threshold of vehicles passing that point, and that the warrant, the word warrant applies to a threshold of vehicles
Right.
passing, which then forces you into a higher degree of specifications
Right.
for design.
You know, and I guess I would go back to the issues I raised last year, which is, if you look at a trail that has crossings, adequate crossings, like the Minuteman Trail from Bedford to Lexington, Mass, and into Arlington and Cambridge, same traffic volume roads, traffic comes to a stop when the pedestrians push the button. And it really, it's not a full light cycle, I don't know what the cycle time is, it depends how long the crossing, but, you're talking 20 seconds or 25 seconds where the traffic would be stopped. And then traffic would be able to resume again. So, yes, during rush hour in the morning, it might cue some cars back, but most of the time, I would
That's what we
expect it to
talked
be a big
about this
problem.
morning on the cycle of actually crossing. It was like, perhaps in 5 seconds, it would activate from yellow to full red. And then the pedestrian would have a countdown clock displayed, 15, 14, 13.
Right.
Did any of the studies look at anything other than, any options other than at-grade crossings?
We, the study addresses and will address, because they did ask us to put a little more meat on the bones for a tunnel crossing and a bridge crossing.
Great.
The problem with both tunnel and bridge, the tunnel, at least at the ball fields, is how do you deal with the drainage, we'd have to pump water out of it because there's no place to daylight drainage to. And ADA, the ramp lengths to comply with ADA would be very long. So the engineers did commit to going back and kind of taking a little more detailed look at it and addressing it in the report, but that is something DOT asked them to.
You may have seen in other parts of the country, bridges over major highways where you have a spiral ramp. Those aren't cheap.
No.
No, but
And-
then again, you're talking about some major motorist inconveniences. I mean,
Yes.
there's backups there now from the Wallace Roundabout at the ball fields.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
Phil?
just a follow-up though on that, because the oxymoron here is, we got a CMAQ grant to do Mash Road from the Manchester line, further up. We get CMAQ grants. Part of the CMAQ methodology is to reduce stopping of traffic for pollution. And I guess the oxymoron here is we have a rail trail, which you get money from the CMAQ to eliminate pollution, and yet we're looking at adding traffic lights to stop the traffic, which increases the pollution. So it would seem to me that
Yeah.
the bizarre, a bridge or a tunnel.
Yeah, the engineer's guesstimate was that those would be unbelievably more expensive. You know, if we can't come up with a little bit more.
We're
for the
trying to
same
do 3 crossings of public roads, and the grant may not even be sufficient for one if that was the case.
Yeah.
I mean, Collis's point, the amount of traffic and the inconvenience of the traffic, along with the pollution, where's the benefit?
And the potential for accidents and pedestrian injuries and, I mean, you know, it's a lot to consider. You know, all of the predictions that I've read is that the rail trail intensity of use is gonna increase. Certainly the traffic on Mass Road is going to increase over time, so, you know, we're just multiplying the number of potential opportunities for those types of accidents.
My fear is, and has been since we conceived this project, that if we don't do anything, it's worse. You know,
Well, I would
the
agree
kids,
with you there.
the
Yeah.
kids dashing, making the dash across is,
I've done it many times myself,
is
yes.
the most frightening thing to me.
Terrorizing.
Yeah, yeah. So I kinda look at okay, we gotta do something, what's the lesser of all the evils? And again, I know all of you haven't had the benefit of using the Minuteman Trail, but,
I've done it in Stowe, Vermont, they have the same thing.
yeah, but in Stowe, Vermont, they don't have the traffic that they have in Cambridge and Arlington and.
They have trucks.
That's my point is, you know, if you go down to the Minuteman Trail, it's Mass Road. That's what you're crossing. You're
Yeah.
crossing Mass Road. It's Route 4 through Lexington, same thing.
I've done that, yeah.
And it's, boy, you want that traffic to stop. And it does, and it works, and everybody lives with it, and it's, you know, so from a user of the trail perspective,
Yeah, I think they're a little different because I think on the Minuteman Trail, most of those crossings, you don't have a roundabout in close proximity that also affects the queuing, stopping the traffic. And then a light, like we do at Irving Station, that also causes backups to that traffic.
Phil, one more comment,
Yeah,
Phil,
just-
and then we'll move into a motion.
If we're looking at 3 of these signalized intersections on Mass Road, I think that we might drive a lot of the traffic onto the back road.
there's 2 on Mass Road. The other one's on Henry Bridge.
Okay, well, 2 of them
The
is
state-
bad enough, but I
In
think.
this letter, 1 October, the state said our engineering study for Henry Bridge Road is acceptable.
Yeah.
And that was the yellow flashing beacons. The chair would like to offer a motion for the board to be considered, and in deference to the 2 May 2011 motion made by the board concerning the design of lights at a rail trail crossing, I would like to, my motion is to remove the design constrictions referenced in that motion. And let the design engineer and the state bring back a design that's favorable from their safety perspective, and then we could consider that. So, motion is to remove the design restrictions of what type of light would be acceptable.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion?
I'm not entirely clear. So you're talking about this motion that was, at the time, made by Vice Chairman
Yes.
Campusano?
It was a motion to move towards a motion-activated flashing yellow warning strobe. And that was the design. It's lights that are on the shoulder of either road on the same pole with the yellow signage.
So do I understand the motion then would be to,
Remove that restriction of design.
but the the ultimate outcome would be to direct the DPW director to work with the consultant and DOT towards a solution? Is that what we're saying, just generic?
To bring back design options to this board?
Yes,
Great, okay, so I'll make sure I understand. Thank you.
because that'll be part of the engineering study brought
Mhm.
to DOT. And you'll a better understanding of the funding there too. Okay, those in favor of the motion indicate saying aye. Aye. Thank you. Carl, anything else? Project, water precinct.
Yeah. This kind of gets us back into the conversation that we were engaged in before with the road plan. I've been talking, as the board knows, if you look at our 2012 road plan, we had a wish list item, if we had time at the end of the year, to start making the drainage improvements in Pleasant Street. Pleasant Street is the next large reclaim project in the queue, shy of finishing Addison Road. I've been talking with Lee Minnick at the water precinct because the water main in Pleasant Street is over 100 years old and also needs to be replaced. The concern that I have had in talking to Lee, you know, if you kind of witnessed what happened on Elm Street, the water precinct's budget, they have an allocation of, you know, so much money every year. Like everyone else, they're hesitant to increase it tremendously, year to year to year. So when we did Elm Street, it took the water precinct, I think, 5 years to replace the pipe along Elm Street. So my fear was, okay, how long is Pleasant Street gonna take? Lee and I got together, started talking about how we could expedite that. And basically, Lee has, between this year's allocation and what he has left and next year's allocation, enough to buy the materials to do the job. What we had as a conversation was, if DPW is down there digging, putting in drainage and all the things we're doing, could we dig the water trench as well and put his water pipe in? Understanding there's a separation here between the town resources and the water precinct resources, what we're kind of leaning towards, and again, this is a conceptual discussion, because Lee would have to get it approved by the commissioners, and obviously you folks would have to be on board as well. But what we could do is DPW provide the equipment to assist Lee to dig the trench. Lee provide the materials, we would track our time and labor, and then the precinct would reimburse the town the following year for their budget allocation for the work. So we would get a deferred revenue back the following year. Again, it's a little messy, a little complicated, but it gets the pipe done in 1 year while we're down there disrupting traffic. It helps the precinct keep their costs reasonably in check, and kind of keeps the project moving forward on a reasonable timeline.
Any concerns from the board?
Just a question.
Yes, Phil.
If we didn't go forward with this, how many years would it be doing so? You'd be working on Pleasant Street every year?
Well, it would probably mean we wouldn't be able to do Pleasant Street, and it would take him 2 or 3 years to get the pipe replaced, and then we could go in and do it after that.
So every year for 3 years, part of Pleasant Street would be getting dug up.
The water line.
Yep.
And at some point, they're complete, then you do your drainage work.
Right.
And then we'll have another Mass Road fiasco.
No, just Mass Road project.
I'm just saying.
You're just saying.
But we have to be practical, that it's not gonna take 1 year, it'll probably take 2, because we thought Mass Road would take 1 year and it took 3 or 4, so we have to be practical with that. It's not gonna take one summer. Just not.
What do you need tonight?
Just the board's concurrence that I would work out an agreement between Lee and I in writing, and the commissioners could approve it, and you folks could approve it, and we would move forward on that basis. If there's not a major concern, I don't wanna waste my time.
I'd like to have a conversation with the commissioners
Yeah.
myself. I mean, this has just sprung upon me. I would wanna, I'm not shutting the door to it, but it's a little stickiness on this thing. I mean, because they're different entities. I mean, it sounds like it's a good idea, but I think the
You'd like
devil's
to-
always in the details.
You'd like to have a precinct commissioner?
Yeah, it'd be good to, because one of the questions.
Endorse the willingness to partner
Well,
in
yeah,
this?
that's one, but, you know, I remember we were at the budget committee meeting the other night, and Dick Fletcher was saying that, you know, they're done now on Elm Street, and what are they gonna do, what's their next project? So, you know, should they budget for it being all at one shot? Can we do it in a deferred way? I mean, I'd like to have a conversation with the commissioners on it. 'Cause, I mean, I think it's a good thing that we are all on the same page, because nobody, let's face it, that construction on Elm Street, year after year after year, it's just not a good thing. You know, and it would be nice to
The
have
town-
it done, but,
If I could add then, the town has a desire to upgrade Pleasant Street as quickly as prudent. However, we need to consider the fact that the water line has to be replaced, and is there a way that we can facilitate that as a partnership with the water precinct? So you
this
have
goes
some
to
ideas.
Hermsdorf? Is that where it goes? Where's it go to?
What's that?
Where does the water, it goes Pleasant Street, it's New Boston Road towards, when does it stop?
I'm
Not
not
Hermsdorf,
100% sure,
but
but
is it-
it goes all the way out to Bog Road.
Bog Road?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
About
substantial,
Cushing
I
Road.
mean.
Yeah, it is.
From the
mean,
person
That's
who
why I
knows
said
all
we
the
have
hydrants
another
in
Mass
town,
Road
thank you.
fiasco.
I'd like to
Okay.
think we could work something out, but again, I'd like to see a draft proposal to see how it's all gonna work. There's some real details that need to be.
Then,
worked out.
I think, Carl, you have enough of a heads up here tonight, that there's indications here, we'd like that plan, but we'd like to talk to both you and a commissioner at the same time.
Yep.
And
And I have one question. Your drainage work that you're dealing with, I assume that it affects, it would reduce all the puddling that we get over,
Oh, my gosh, I hope so.
Yeah.
just, because that's been, that, a reason why I say that has been, that's a forever problem.
Okay.
Okay.
And I very much want to get the drainage in before the water line goes in, so that we are in the right location.
Mr. Quare,
I
did we cover all
understand.
your subjects this
I
evening?
think so.
Thank you. Next item, Town Administrator's Report.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly go through this. On your weekly meeting schedule that's in your packet, cross off Wednesday, 7 PM Conservation Commission, they've canceled their meeting. Can everyone attend the ones they have to attend, or do you have to?
I'm attending Finance tomorrow night. We have Historic District Commission on Wednesday night, Planning Board Thursday night, and Solid Waste Thursday
Yeah,
night.
I have solid waste covered.
Thank you, Colin. Go ahead.
Okay, your consensus folder tonight includes the manifest for October 22nd. AP is $82,546.43, and the payroll and withholding is $137,122.08. You also have the appointment papers for Kevin Daigle's appointment to Parks and Rec, the Nationwide Retirement Solutions Update to Administrative Services Agreement, and that has been reviewed by the Finance Director. Motion's needed to accept the consensus folder.
So moved.
Second.
In favor of the motion to approve the consensus vote, indicate say aye.
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 5-0, Kath.
The assessor has recommendations for you tonight. The land use change tax lien release on map 6, lot 40. Veterans tax credits, map 2, lot 6314, map 6, lot 17B 100, and map 9, lot 2642. Also, a report of timber cut on map 1, lot 19C, and an intent to cut on map 10, Lot 30, motion needed to accept the assessors' recommendations.
Motion to accept?
Motion by Carl, second by Phil.
Yes. In favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. You
5-0, Catherine.
You have an application from Peter J. Hooker for the alternate position on the Parks and Rec Commission. Motion is needed to appoint.
Motion to appoint Peter Hooker as an alternate on the Parks and Rec Commission?
Second.
Tie.
Give it to
How's it
Scott. Give it to
I
Scott.
heard,
Defer.
my stereo hearing heard Scott. In favor of the motion,
Aye.
indicate say aye. Aye. 5-0, Catherine.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, as of
You
today.
happy, Rick? Are you here for something else?
The budget's.
The big event, even
You
bigger than
missed
what
it.
we.
You missed it.
Virtual discussion.
Okay, please continue with the tax rate.
Yes, we have an unconfirmed tax rate at this time. As soon as it's confirmed, we will go public with it. Hopefully, it will be this week. And what I wanted to ask is, would the board be available as soon as we have it, the we can run the property tax warrant that requires your signature and get out the bills, because this is really late this year, and we really want to get those bills out. So anticipate an email from me or a phone call.
Email, phone
If we can
call.
get that confirmation tomorrow or
Mhm.
Wednesday.
And the confirmation is coming in from the State
DRA.
Department of Revenue Administration.
Correct.
Let the viewers know that all that has to be coordinated through the state.
That's right. We have legislation proposed next year whereby the towns could set their own tax rate. We'll see how that goes. 2013 cafeteria rates. As you know, the increase in premiums were not as anticipated. We had anticipated 10% increase. They came in at 5.4%. That's the good news. We also have a contribution holiday that's not factored. That would be a budget discussion for next year, how to budget for that. But we've calculated the 2013 cafeteria rates for the unions and non-unions, and they are 8F in your packets.
Turning to 8F.
And we need board approval to go ahead and do our forms for our health fair that we usually have the first week of November, or second week, as soon as we can schedule it.
And this is where the employees actually select
Their plans for next
their
year.
plans, whether they be single, two-person, or family.
Right, and LGC is
Yeah,
working
or
on printing out
cafeteria.
the booklets for them. So you have, the gray shaded areas are the actual cafeteria rates, and they're based on the premiums that are in the unshaded box above it. So we need a motion to accept the 2013 cafeteria rates.
So moved.
Motion by Phil,
Second.
seconded by Mark Lemay. Any discussion from our budget representative, your committee rep?
Just a selectman. I'm not gonna support this because I know contractually we have to honor the rates for patrolmen, dispatch, fire, Teamsters, et cetera, because they're bargaining, but I think we need to work towards greater employer contributions or changes in plans to try to mitigate the increases in health insurance. And although we're fortunate that we have only a 4 to 5% increase this year, that has not been the historical trend, and it's not the trend in the private sector, where typically employers pay 75 or 80% of the cost, and the employee has to pay the difference. In Goffstown and in other communities, in fairness, we pay 90% and the employee pays 10. If I could, if you give me a little bit of latitude, a few more minutes to speak, Mr. Chair, do I have that?
Please.
Okay. We saw, I'm going to use the family plan as an example. It went up $88.38 per month for the total cost of the plan, which is $1,060 in rough numbers. Now, what that means is that the employee will see a 10%, they have to pay 10% of that because they pay 10%. So their annual increase towards that contribution is $106 roughly, and the town's is $954 for that family plan. if we go with an 85% contribution, you will see the employee contribute $159, and the town would contribute $901, roughly. So I think considering that we have committed to a 3.5% salary increase, which if the average town employee is making $40,000, some lower, some higher, they'll see an increase of about $1,400 in their take-home pay. To ask them to contribute another $50 potentially a year on top of, $159, I should say. I think that's fair. And I just don't think that the town or the taxpayers should keep bearing the 90% share. It just doesn't make sense to me. And that's why I know that we're in a quandary because we try to put our union and our non-union folks on the same level playing field. And I totally appreciate that. But that only happens like once every 3 or 4 years. And we cannot react that slowly. I don't want to do this, just to our non-union folks, but then again, we did this a couple of years ago, and then it's a clear indication to our bargaining unit members that, yeah, we're looking at 85% to 50.
Do
at
any
85,
other
15.
board member have comments along those lines? I've got to add that I'd like to respect the ability to bargain with patrolmen, dispatch, fire, and Teamsters next year, perhaps towards those lines, but not immediately put the burden on the non-union employees, which your plan would be heading in that direction.
Yes, albeit they would
Yes.
contribute an extra $54 on per
We
year.
still,
Yes.
and we still have the opportunity to impact a greater number if we were to be able to put this into the bargaining agreements next year and then implement it with the non-union at the same time. I'd like to see it more coordinated, from my perspective, with the unions and the non-unions, all at the same time. Phil?
I agree with both of you, and I think that towards that goal, if we have that discussion, or the discussion that we're having now, at least it's on the table, everybody hears it, and everybody would expect that next year, that's what would probably happen, because that's where we've been heading. But I agree that I just don't think that it's fair to suddenly spring it up at this point. I mean, let's keep it, the discussion open, and knowing that that's where we're going.
Any further points?
Yeah, I just wanted to remind the board and maybe our two newer members that our board did make some modest adjustments with respect to vacation that we gave to our non-union employees that we have not yet, that may be bargained for next year. So I think you try to do what you can for your non-union folks, knowing that, and we've had an HR committee and things of that nature, but, the stakes are just simply too high to play status quo. And I don't think that asking an extra $53 or $54 a year to get to that 85%, and that's only on a family plan. It'll be lesser if it was a single or a two-person. I just don't think that's asking too much, and especially since we've committed towards a 3.5% salary increase, which I think in these times is fair because our bargaining units were getting that. So I know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. What do you try to line them all up? But it just doesn't seem to have worked out as quickly as I thought it would, and I think we should have been at 85% 2 years ago. So
Okay. We have, yes.
Just for my benefit, what
last one.
specifically accommodation did we allow to the non-union?
they would get
Amount of time, it was the amount of time they would be
eligible for greater vacation.
in employment
In
to
employment.
transition to a
Okay.
higher level of vacation.
Vacation time. Yeah.
We have a motion to accept the schedule of health and dental premiums for 2013, non-union and for the various bargaining agreements. Those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
Nay.
4-1-0.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Sue. Selectmen's discussion, old business, nothing pre-planned. Anything recollected from board members here? Old business that we want to move forward? Ben?
Just one question. Sue, did I forward to you, I can't recall, so refresh my memory. Did I forward to you Kurt Lauer's response relative to the improvements at the Hillside Methodist Church? Remember where you're looking for a dollar amount?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Well, I'll forward that to you tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you.
Two more items on our agenda, new business, selectmen's discussion, followed by committee reports. So, new business is continuing our deliberations on the 2013 budget. Sue, would you lead off that discussion with the comments you've prepared?
Yes, last week, the board placed CIP items in categories A, B, C, and D, or otherwise referred to as parking lot. And they eliminated some. One appeared to be a duplication. It appeared in CIP and debt service. Another was withdrawn by Parks and Rec. The next step is to prioritize within each category. I believe that's what the board decided they were going. So at tab 9B, you should find that sheet.
In this tab, you'll find that those items that the board put into what we're calling category A, highlighted in the first column, B in the second column, category C in the next column, and they're summed up, so visually separated so you can see the immediate effects of moving projects from one column to the other. I'm going to start off the discussion with the CIP project that was called Village Road Improvements. I'm concerned that this is just a simple one to me, but the title of that CIP project, Village Road Improvements, may send the wrong message to the greater number of residents in the town. What leeway do we have to call that by what it's really being done? It's the Route 114, 13 intersections that are being improved.
Are we improving in between there also, Carl? Where's Carl Slash?
Not part of the
Oh, there he is.
No.
No, not part of the grant.
It's not part of the grant,
It's the
okay.
actual intersections of 114 and 13 that are addressed by that project. Right, Carl?
Yes, it's just the intersection.
Yes.
Okay.
And for the greater number of residents who would be interested in that, I think the title sends the wrong message. We're improving roads in the village. No, we're improving two state highways that intersect close to the village. And they're our responsibility because it's in the compact area.
Procedurally, there's no issue with changing it. If the board wants a name change, it's simply rekeying it in the May software.
Thank
And
you.
it allows us to do that.
Don't have to go back to the vendor of the
No.
software package. Okay. Would that be acceptable to the board?
Yeah,
Fine.
Thank
I
you.
think it's fine.
Okay, continuing then, this board, in my absence last week, placed that in category C, and I would urge the board to consider that project higher in its precedence. We have had numbers of committees and studies looking at the redesign of those two intersections through many years. And Scott, I know you have those in the tip of your tongue, a long history of the redesign of those two intersections. We've applied for a federal grant, Congestion Mitigation Air Quality, CMAQ, which is contributing federal funds towards the design and reconstruction of those two intersections. This is our opportunity to match that grant and move forward. If we don't fund our share of the match this coming year, we have lost the grant.
So this is a $761,000 project that we only have to raise taxes on $102,000 approximately.
And if, quite honestly, if we were to go back to the state and saying, we've lost interest in this design and improvement of these two intersections, after a lot of work, the likelihood of ever going back and asking for a grant in the near future is nil. So that's what I'm concerned about. Scott?
I understand that concern and I appreciate it. I'm looking at the bottom line as to what the total number will be. And I guess my question to you would be, what are we willing to shift or move and not do? Because I'm willing to reconsider that 102,000, and I appreciate the fact that it's $761,000 project, of which our share is very minimal. And it probably makes sense, but by the same token, what are we gonna move out? Are we gonna move out the culvert and slope failure one more year and cross our fingers? Are we gonna cut the road program by that 102,000? What are we gonna do to make up the difference? Because I'm actually satisfied with the bottom line.
You left out an option. Could one or several of these projects be funded by reserve funding? And that moved them out of the budget completely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to look at, I know that we've historically spent, over the recent years, we've spent $3 to $3.5 million on CIP type items. Last year, hold on, let me get my CIP out. I don't think we spent more than 1.5, but I have to double check that. So I'm just looking at the bottom line and recognizing that we probably need to incrementally get back to, that $3.5 million mark. I think that's probably a prudent number, but we can't do it all in 1 year. And I think we have to look at kind of similar to what we spent last year, but maybe a modest increase. So hold on a second. Yeah, we spent 1.3. I have here.
1.327?
Yeah, well, I'm looking. I don't know if I'm down total.
This is what was approved at town meeting, 1.327,
Okay, I was looking at this number here.
not including special articles.
Right. Somewhere between 1.3 and 1.5. And that was less we had road program that did not pass by a narrow margin. Bill?
Yeah, I understand the discussion, and I'm just gonna make this suggestion though. We have, in the discussion that we have finance software that I think we all agree the importance on the finance software. It's the highest ticket item outside of the road plan. Why don't we take the finance software and look at funding the finance software from the reserve? That would take that literally, I mean, since there's an offset, it would literally take it out of there for the bottom line. Then you could bring back in the 114 and 13 intersection, and I would still have the conversation and discussion of possibly moving out the culvert and slope failure. And the only reason why I say take out the culvert and slope failure, for discussion purpose, to see where we go through the budget. When we get through the budget, if it's possible to put it back in, put it back in, but I would be comfortable if we had to leave it out, because if there was an emergency, we can deal with an emergency. Okay, we have reserve. If we use 300 of the reserve for the finance software, we have reserve for emergencies, and it could be done out of what's left in reserve. If we had to.
I'm in favor of what you just mentioned, but I'd like some information from it, Carl, Public Works. Come up so we could hear you, Claire.
Because we all know that Pleasant Street attaches to that.
I'm gonna pick
section.
up on Phil's point, culvert and slope failure.
Yes.
The culvert is several phases of work involved with that. One is clearing an access road so other design engineers can look at the amount of failure and tentative solutions. Is that something that could be accommodated in the next year if this was moved out, if the project was moved out a year? In the intervening time, could the access road be built?
That was our plan anyway, yeah, is to try to do the
And-
access road.
In the course of doing that, some remedial addressing some of the issues right at the culvert inlet to lessen the likelihood of that culvert becoming totally blocked in a flooding situation, causing you to, think of what they may be.
No, I know what they are. It's causing me to shudder to think what's attached to what, and if we start pulling at it, what would happen?
Well, and my final point is, could this be separated? The slope failures on one side of the embankment, the culvert, of course, is under the entire
Oh,
embankment.
absolutely, yeah, they could be separated. And I also should say, that permitting that project is no small task. That's gonna take some time.
And so the permitting may take all next year. Good portion.
I mean, we're talking about a historic box culvert, so it's,
And once again, you'd have to, to facilitate that, really,
Discuss the
a
historic.
small construction road down to the site would facilitate all of that. Okay, Scott.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the historic part of the box culvert. I mean, personally, that doesn't mean anything to me, and I don't know what history is in a box culvert, but I don't know if anybody's seen the history of the box culvert, but is there a less expensive way of kind of dealing with this? Because it just seems to me that, this is one of the things that we talk about at a local and federal level of, like, I don't know, I'm gonna just say it, it's stupidity. Because if we can do it for a less expensive way, it's not like, it just doesn't make sense to me that we would spend, all this money to maintain a historic culvert. I mean, that nobody sees. I mean, I can understand a historic bridge, a historic building, but a culvert?
Did you have to videotape the last one, the dismantling of it?
I mean, if this is something that requires, like, governor action or DES action or
President.
something, but it just does not make sense to me that we would have to.
the
What?
president has to change.
President of the United States? Who would support, is that gonna be part of the debate tonight? Who supports the
Our
culvert?
policy tonight.
Oh, okay.
I'd like to remind the board that's in 50 minutes.
I'm not even gonna try to defend
It
this,
just seems
Don, I'm with
crazy.
you.
I mean,
It doesn't matter, it's an issue that needs to be dealt with.
Right.
Yeah.
right,
We've got to deal with it.
Right, but in
Because
terms
there's
of doing it
very
in a more
state and federal law that
cost-effective
says
way.
you have
Well,
to deal with it, and you have to address the issue.
I think part of that issue is gonna be in this design or this permitting and what's gonna get done, because we had a similar type issue with a historic box culvert over on Mast Road over by the villa.
Yes.
Okay, we did, and I have to tell you that they asked for HDC input, and HDC said basically what you said. I mean, it's just, this is you know, it's an emergency. I mean, it's when you prioritize things, where does the box culvert come from? I mean, you know, let's get Mast Road open rather than
when we
this.
put a marker, a historical marker next to the culvert, then maybe we should start talking, but I just don't know, I mean, why we're gonna spend all that money.
what you wish for.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, you're talking about the HDC at the local level, you're talking about Goffstown's Historic
Right.
District Commission?
No, they asked for input from HDC about that box culvert, and to us, it was more important to get Mast Road going, not hold up Mast Road than a box culvert. It
You're
didn't have the
referring-
priority.
Oh, really, it's the Division of Historic Resources,
Yeah.
a state agency.
Following federal rules.
Right, that's who asked us for our input.
So,
Get rid of that.
we're going down several rabbit trails. Thank you, Carl.
You're welcome.
Well, can I just ask Carl one question? Carl, have we had any preliminary discussions with DHR on the culvert? I mean, they don't object to all stone culverts, so.
They don't object, but they want to restore all stone culverts. And we have had preliminary discussions.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And, you know, the problem is this one, I hate to say it, but it is a granite box culvert that is. does
In its
have
original day,
integrity.
it
Not
was
scabbed with pipes.
you could walk through it standing up.
Oh.
It's 6 feet high, 4 feet wide.
And what are the size of the granite stones?
They're gonna be huge.
2 by 2 by 8 feet long.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the one on Elm Street had a pipe stuffed in this end and a different pipe stuffed in the other end, and that was a whole different animal. This is
And a
real-
Christmas tree stuck in the middle.
Yeah.
How's that bad?
Okay, we started talking about that because Phil made a suggestion to take the culvert and slope failure project out of our category A and put it in a lower category, indicating that it possibly be eliminated for this year's CIP, allowing him to do some preliminary work to address that in permitting and other access considerations, physically accessing the inlet.
One other thing that we could do is, and I'm just looking at the numbers and just for the rounding numbers, what if we left 20,000 in for the road design and the design of the culvert or something like that? And move out the 100 and just make it into 2 phases.
Yeah, that's where I'd be going. So it's gonna take that, it's gonna be a phased project anyway, so you might
Yeah,
as well.
and the thing is if we get any of that engineering or any of that design work done, when it's out into the second year, you'd be basically dealing with this as though we had a slope failure at the landfill. I mean, if we had a slope failure at the landfill, what do? It's not something that's in the
You gotta
budget.
address it.
You gotta deal with it, and I think that the thing to do is to deal with this the same way.
So,
What is it now?
That's no, do you want EMS and sewer in there, or just general fund?
Just general.
so
General fund, so that's this number.
I agree that it would be, my recommendation would be to leave the culvert slope failure at $20,000 in category A. Our intention, I presume, I wasn't here last week, but category A looks like it would be the one immediately funded in CIP, covered by the CIP proposal.
Yeah, you know,
Where would you like to move the other
Any of this
100,000?
stuff.
What lower level?
Personally, I'm not gonna support that. I think we need to deal with it right now. I think it's a severe problem. And it's gonna be a humongous problem. If we get even a 25 or 50-year storm over the next 12 months or so, that whole thing is gonna go. So now we're gonna be taking a big, huge chunk of our reserve money and spending it on something we could have avoided it, and keeping that reserve money in place for something else. And I think this is pretty small money right now to deal with this issue, whereas it could be huge money next year to deal with it. And I don't wanna be spending the reserve fund money to deal with it because of our short-sightedness this year for a $120,000 item.
And I'll agree with Collis, because I want that to be repaired. I'm not looking for any major functions or any major failures of this pipe to occur, and I don't want to deal with the other issues.
The major failure you're both talking about is that the embankment becomes an impoundment
Earthen
dam.
Earthen dam, and if that earthen
And
dam lets
if
go,
the
and
dam can't hold the pressure, it washes, it's just pure sand, it washes away.
And we won't be talking about a historic culvert anymore, because there'll be a bunch of granite blocks down by the river somewhere.
yeah, or in the river.
With Scott's sign saying this is the site of the disappeared historic culvert.
Well, that's one way to deal with it, see? And you don't have to worry about the historic, because the blocks will be floating away.
But I mean, if we're looking to knock $100,000 off somewhere, I'd rather look someplace else to find that $100,000 than in this line item.
Okay?
But I don't think realistically we're gonna get to it, as Carl said.
Yes, Scott.
Just want to try to frame this. If you look at the bottom line, grand total, second page, grand total for CIP and special articles, the yellow highlights,
Yes.
2.5, can we just say it's 2.5 million?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Last year, it was 1.5, okay, give or take. So, and that's largely because of the road program, the reclamation, $1.5 million, which we put before the voters last year, and it wasn't supported, okay?
It was a separate
It
article.
was a separate article, but it wasn't supported.
It's not our intention
So-
right now, I believe.
Right, so if you take that, if you remove the 1.5 reclamation, now you're looking at, $1 million. Okay? Which is about 500,000 less than what we spent last year.
You're referring to the 1.5 that's
I guess what I'm,
in
I get,
category A?
yes. So I'm looking at category A right now, and I think what we need to focus in on is what is the amount of money, bottom line, that we want to put forward in CIP for next year, period. And right now, it stands at $2.5 million. All right? We spent 1.5 last year, and in prior years, we've spent 3.5.
And that
We-
$1 million increase this year is due to?
The sum of all these.
Right. Now,
Well, the road
No.
plan mostly.
but my point is, again, let's just try to, I think there seems to be, is there a consensus on using the finance software is a more of a mission-critical type of thing? We know it's in.
If there's
imminent
ever a
failure.
reason for the rainy day
Right, but-
fund,
So
that
if you,
is
if
critical
you
to
do
the
that,
success of this.
and if you take that out of this, and you're gonna use fund balance for that, now you're at 2.2 million. Is that, and I don't know if we have consensus on that, it seems like we do. So now we're at 2.2.
well,
So you're
I'm gonna
gonna-
go back to your original question to me, what could come out of the budget? And we've just talked about removing 300,000 to be funded by fund balance. And, I would like to restore the 100,000 from, 114 and 13.
Okay, so that, you're at 2.3.
And then
So now you're at
We'll go-
2.3.
Well, yeah,
2.3,
that's
You did
net.
that. What?
You're talking net now?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah. So,
That's not how it would appear on.
I understand
Okay.
what would it appear. But
I'm looking at it for the purposes of taxation.
Okay.
And I would also,
we, if I may,
Yeah.
we need to move back towards a CIP that's more reasonable towards the longevity of all the infrastructure improvements. I can't support putting the road plan into a separate article. It needs to be part of the plan and part of the budget and a potentially default budget. So, I'm fine with the 300 fund balance for the software. It's critical. And I would urge the honoring of the funding of the CMAQ grant and getting that project, which has been in discussion for over a decade, off dead center.
I'm
So,
sorry.
That's where I am. And yeah, your round numbers, that would mean, instead of $2.5 million in tax money, it's 2.3. More or less.
If I may?
Yep.
Yeah, I support using the fund balance for the finance software. I think that's what it's intended for. Specific projects, it's a one-time expenditure. Along those same lines, I would support the $170,000 for the police IMC software for the same reason. It's a software application package. It's a one-time expenditure. It's badly needed. So that would take $170,000 more out of this bottom line.
Carlos, help me, the police IMC software you're referring to? That's already in column A,
Yeah,
and you were just suggesting moving that out?
using the reserve fund.
Oh, really?
Special article,
Yeah.
to do,
As we would do
use
with the
fund
fin-
balance to pay for that one as well as the
I'm
finance.
sorry,
As we
I
do with the
missed,
finance
I
software.
missed the word fund balance on that sentence. Scott?
Is it okay if I think sometimes it helps to visualize some of this.
Andrew, can you pick up the whiteboard when Scott writes? Thank you.
Andrew sounds happy.
What?
Andrew sounds happy.
All right.
Write boldly.
2012, 2013. Okay. So operating budget and CIP. So I think we talked about 1.5 was there. And what I was trying to do is what's the difference? And, you know, the bottom line is when you talk about what's the difference, is this is what the taxpayers are gonna have to make up. So if we went with a 2.3, did we say?
That was my last conversation.
Okay.
Carlos might
Doesn't
lower
really
that
matter.
even
I mean,
more,
I'm
but
just- we'll use that hypothetically. We'd be looking at $800,000 here.
Mhm.
And we need to know what the operating budget is gonna look like. That there's no doubt about it. We have to know that because we know that we've got downshifted retirement costs, which are substantial, 150.
30s,
Okay.
something thousand.
And then we've got the health insurance, we've got salaries, we've got fuel oil, all these types of things. And I'm not comfortable with telling the voters, oh, you're gonna vote on this operating budget and it's gonna be $1.5 million more than last year, vote it up or down, and I am for choice. So, and if that means that, and the biggest nut of the choice is the road program. So if you want roads done, that's your choice, you know, and you can, but if not, then you're gonna have a modest increase in our overall spending, but it's something that it's not gonna break the bank and it won't scare people away. So in this particular case, if you took this out, even though you're proposing this 2.3, but it was only 1.3 of it was in the budget and the other $1 million or 1.5 of it was outside of the the operating budget, then the voters are saying, hey, you know what? I do want the roads and I'm willing to pay for the roads. And then we'll maybe put in the article to put it back into the fall. But the big number is, what is this? If this is $800,000 or something, do you really think that when you combine these two, $1.6 million, I mean, that's $1.20 in the tax rate. That's not palatable to me. I don't think that's palatable to they may choose to do that, but I'd rather give the voters some choices. That's where I'm at. And I just don't know what the difference is between this year and this year. I know it's gonna I think it'll be close to $700,000 to $800,000. Now, what offsetting revenues we're gonna have, I don't, we know we have a couple of premium holidays in there. We know we have a 0.5, 0.5% increase in our valuation that will help some things, but
The holidays we can't count as revenue,
we cannot.
no.
No.
We just
It's not
budget lower.
Yeah.
Okay. So we budget lower.
And that's what we're working on.
Okay. So we just don't know these numbers here.
Right.
All we know, we do have some definitive numbers there. So that's where I'm at, as I think we definitely need to know where we're at with the operating
Well,
budget.
this gets you right to the branch from which you flew at the beginning, is what is your goal?
Yep.
Right. Okay.
I don't think that's been answered yet.
That's fine, but it doesn't help us make decisions tonight on CIP.
It will if you have, no, not tonight, because you
No,
need to know the
'cause we
operating
don't know.
budget
Right.
numbers.
Phil?
We might be able to help a little bit in PD on the hindsight. If we could, if it's okay, have the chief come up and explain. I've had some preliminary discussions with the chief, and I think that might help, if it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. The hindsight recorder is in there for just over $25,000. I've reviewed my budget and the expenditures from that over the last 5 years, my current year budget, and I believe I can take it out of this year's budget, that $25,000. I've been in contact with the hindsight people. If I purchase it by the end of the year, I'll be able to save another $2,000. And again, I think I can take it out of this year's budget, and I have the money available.
And for the viewers, hindsight
The
refers
hindsight
to...
recorder is the 911 recorder that, hello, you've called the police department, it's an emergency, where do you need
And
help?
for a lot of liability issues, that's rather critical in your
industry
line of
norm.
operation.
It's the industry norm, yes.
So if I can ask, so you're saying that you would save $2,000 from this 25,875?
Correct.
So we would be looking at 23,875?
Roughly, yes.
approximately.
Safe to say that's coming from the salary line, I'm assuming, because you had an officer that was unfilled for a long time?
Partly, yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Scott again.
Okay, on that same track, I mean, sometimes we're fortunate, like in this case, we're gonna get what do you call it? Refund, premium holiday, contribution holiday. In this year, that was unbeknownst to us until just recently. What does that translate into for December? Extra
It's-
unspent monies of how much?
But she has an answer.
What?
She does have an answer.
67,000 minus the 9,700 that we have to give back to retirees, all of that, 9,700. And plus whatever portion the elected officials, who also paid 100%, we have to get that rate. You'd have to subtract that out. So, yeah, you're,
It's fair to say between 50 to 55,000?
yes.
Okay. So, and again, I
And
don't,
then you have to give 10% back to the active employees.
I understand.
Okay.
So, I guess what I'm trying to grasp here is that we've got a lot of things that have to get accomplished here. Is there something like, if we were able to take care of the hindsight recorder, is there something else that potentially is either an A or a B that we could perhaps fund this year and take it off the matrix? Because none of these things are going away. I mean, they're just
Well,
not.
that's the whole
So,
whole problem with infrastructure improvements.
What's the reserve fund balance right now, 5?
4.9
Almost
4.9
5 million.
million.
Okay, I think we need to be looking at more things to,
The auditor, if I'm not mistaken, I thought the number was around 700,000 that he said that we could probably spend. And would not really have any detrimental impact on our ability to maintain a comfortable buffer. And I think we've identified, if we add the IMC software, we're at almost 5. So there is. I just think it's a public awareness campaign that we're gonna have to let folks
Bill?
know. It's not,
No, let's not finish.
you know what I'm saying? If you do these things, I mean, it's easy when it's one thing. But then when we could potentially have 2 to 3 warrant articles that are gonna say using fund balance, which is
I don't have a
fine.
problem with that.
I don't have a problem with either, but it's just gonna take education for the folks to say, okay, this is not some,
well, it's
you know.
easier to educate, in my opinion, educate that way than it is to educate on a big number.
yeah.
And say, here's how we're justifying the big number. Say, no, break it down to little pieces. We've got this money that's available, let's dole it out and buy specific items they're important. And I think, for that matter, you could put the transfer station generator in there.
You have some ideas, Phil?
Well, one of the things I was wondering it's okay if I ask Carl how we dealt with the slope failure at the landfill. When we had that slope failure at the landfill, it was not budgeted for. Didn't we have that basically out of fund balance?
We did get some money back from FEMA on that one,
Mhm.
because that was that October storm, the old Cheshire County.
Right.
What our share of it was came out of fund balance.
And that's the reason why I say, because of the fact that it's emergency, you can do that. And that's part of the reason for fund balance, and we're properly, to me, if we put the $20,000 and had that for the road, access road, and for the design of this, to work on that, to me, it would seem appropriate to deal with it that way. We may not have to use it, we may be able to get by, and it may will work out that it's funded next year, that 100,000 for it, but that's why I said, if we dealt with it the way we dealt with the slope failure at the landfill. And if there was a failure, let's say it was a flood or something that caused the failure, we probably could get some FEMA money.
Well,
The slope failure that was near Nemaski Lake, that had risks that were very evident. If the sewer line
Yeah.
was ruptured, and that would be a terrible situation for the lake and an expense to repair. So, yes, there was need for federal help on that, and it came rather quickly, and we took care of it. But I don't see that you're making comments towards grant money for this slope failure. I don't see that.
No, I'm saying what I meant to say, maybe I wasn't that clear, if there was a flood, if we had a rainstorm and that flood caused the issue with that, then if it was considered a national, a disaster area, because we had some type of a storm that caused the problem.
You like that road?
That's a lot of ifs.
I mean, I think there is a compelling argument to what Collis said. I mean, it's 120,
I can see you raising your hand.
and it could very well be $500,000.
Right.
Whatever you wanna do. I'm
No, and I understand that, but then I'm gonna go back to what you said, though, that could the 3 items be the culvert slope failure, the finance software, and the IMC software? Those are the 3, and that'll get us to $600,000 to $700,000. I think you can make a strong business case for each one of those 3, and that we take those off the CIP part. There are one-time expenditures, fits into that, and it gets to that number. I think those are the easier explanations to the residents than a lot of other stuff.
If I can follow on to that. If I was a taxpayer and I knew that we were faced with this decision right now, we chose not to spend $120,000 to address that issue, and we have a failure next year, we end up spending a huge chunk of our savings account. I'm not gonna be very happy about that, because we're sitting here knowing we've got a dire situation that needs to be addressed. Let's address it. Well, it only costs us $120,000.
And I think that's what Selectman
Yeah.
Gross is saying, right?
Yes,
To
that's what I'm saying.
have 3 items
They'll
to be
be-
funded
they'll-
from fund
those
balance.
would be the
That would
three,
be
and-
one.
I'm just,
Oh, okay.
You know, I think we're in agreement on that, so.
And last week, as I spoke, the road reclamation, $1 million, take 500,000 out of it again. I'm looking, I'd like to see $1 million in there, not 1.5.
Well,
Before you do
My-
that, I would suggest going through the operating budget and let's see what the final numbers look like
Yeah.
with all the insurance adjustments
At
we have
this-
to make and contribution holidays that we have to make.
we really need to see that number.
You do,
do.
and
And-
we just got the information today on one of the insurances, on the new mod rate for workers' comp. So we'll be
Whereas
working on
it-
that this week.
We need to do that before we continue to nip away at the reclamation.
One
and
question.
It was 2.6 to start with, and where it should be, and all things considered. We know it's not gonna be 2.6, but make it less than what it is now at this point.
yeah, I mean, for what it's worth, if we did include those 3, it would be 589,000, almost, you know, it's almost 600.
One question, have you subtracted the 25,875?
No, that'll be another, I'm going round numbers, so I'm gonna go 26, so.
So are we moving the the Route 114 and 13 intersection? Is that moving into column A? Have I heard that yet?
I don't have a problem with that.
Using the reserve fund monies?
If you did that, then you'd be at your 700,000. If you did, there'll be 4 items.
It's 2 software packages.
You've got $120,000 for the culvert and the slope failure. You've got $169,000 roughly for the police IMC software, $300,000 for the town's finance software, and then you would have $102,000 for the 114 Route 13 intersection. So you'd have 700,000. 4 items now.
I have all those in a spreadsheet, Sue,
Mm-hmm.
and I've just removed 2 of the items.
That's 692,
I
107.
removed the 25,000 hindsight, I removed the 300 finance software, slope failure, was that in the discussion? Slope failure?
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Yes, that was a special article.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3. Remove that. And the 4th item,
Was the, was
Route 114,
the
do you have that?
114 and the 13 intersections.
and move that up to category A,
Yep.
Yep, move it to category A and put it as
102.
one of the,
682.
Well, that actually goes to a special article.
yeah.
So the special articles total
Right,
692,107.
exactly.
So that's 5 items.
There's 4 items.
4.
The finance software, IMC software, the culvert and slope failure, and the
Hindsight.
Route 114 and 13.
No, hindsight's being taken
being
out.
paid out of this year, purchased this year out of this
Okay.
year's budget.
You said the 102 for the intersection,
Yes.
Yeah.
that has to be
Special
an
article.
article, so it's not part of the CIP.
Right.
Correct.
So we're reducing the CIP by
So-
the 692, 107 plus a hindsight.
So,
I think that's a pretty good combination.
so effectively, we could just, for right discussion point, leave it in column C, because it's not going to affect the, well, it'll be, would have to be, I'll just highlight it, that would be a special article, but it's not in the CIP.
Right.
My math is 2,047,000,
Oh, for the final number?
yes, yellow column, column A.
'Cause you didn't put the other thing back into column A. You kept it in C.
What's the other
The,
item?
was the 114-13 intersection, did you put that in, back into A? Because if you did,
No, I left it in column C, knowing it's a special article, it's not gonna be in CIP.
I just wanted to stay kind of true to it, because we're
Right.
saying that we're
Okay.
prioritizing
Right.
A.
So
Right.
you want it in column A?
Right,
Yep.
right, because we moved it to A, that's why it's being funded.
Yeah, we're not funding some other thing,
Okay.
so
Done.
that gets me to almost 2.6 million minus the 700,000 roughly that you talked about, so you're about
So-
1.9.
I'm at putting the 114 in section, that's
It's under
Right.
1.9.
Right.
2,150,000.
Right. Right. Now, so if we're at 1.9, up from that one, now you're talking an $800,000, I'm sorry, a $400,000 increase from our 1.5 that we spent last year.
But you're at 1.9 with the 1.5 million in road.
Correct. That includes the 1.5 in road, yeah.
I think we still may be able to work that number
Right.
down.
I think you need to get to through the operating
Yeah,
budget
budget
before you come
first,
back to
yeah.
that.
Yep, I
Yeah.
agree.
No, that's right.
And I have a question to ask you on this contribution holiday, because it's the first time we've ever had one of these, during my tenure anyway. It may be necessary next year, I don't even know how we're gonna do it this year, but dealing with the retirees, LGC is not gonna pay them directly, even though retirees pay directly for their insurance. Nor will they cut us a check for that so that we could accept it as unanticipated revenue and expend it. It comes in the form of a credit, so what line are we going to pay them out of becomes a question, and do we need in the 2013 budget to establish a line to pay them out of for their basic
Is that a
refund?
question for Don?
We did ask Don, and Don has a question to the auditor. So those are the things that we're struggling with
Okay.
in terms of this contribution holiday to figure out how best to go forward next year. There may have to be a line to pay the retirees.
We're gonna receive revenue
Right,
that's simply, we're passing through.
right.
Well,
Well, it's not revenue, it's gonna be a credit on our bill, basically, that we're gonna pass through.
Credit on a
It's not revenue.
expense, an expense
You
line.
know, that's why that's how the question is, how do you show it on the books? If you're paying out, but you're not receiving the revenue, it's a credit.
Right.
Okay, Scott?
Yeah, I was just, getting back to what I said before, that, with this, premium holiday, et cetera, if we know that we're gonna have an unanticipated, $50,000, if you look at column B, these are, whether it be the cemetery expansion, you've got things that are on here, and I'm not talking about a Wortherly Hill drainage that's almost $500,000, but you've got other things here, whether it be the cemetery expansion, you have vehicles. Those things are not gonna go away, some of these things, whether it be dump trucks, pickup trucks, they're not going away.
No.
So if you look at some of these things, I think we have to factor that in. So are there things that we could possibly do this year, out of this year's budget, if we can, and go in that direction? I don't,
Well, that's a question for Sue in your department heads meetings. What items could be accommodated this year? Such as Chief just brought up the fact of the hindsight being purchased out of this year's fund. Maybe, is there any other item that possibly could rise to that statute and be accommodated? I don't, it's unlikely
default
because
budget, I'm not
we're
sure there's
talking
gonna be
large
much
expensive
surplus,
items.
yeah.
And you can't have it both ways. You can't,
No.
spend it and then have a surplus.
Right.
Right, that's right.
Okay, so next week we'll have the operating budget.
Mhm.
difference. When I went through the budget, when I heard the presentations, we've pretty much been operating under flat, level-funded budgets in most of these lines, with the exception of salary and benefits, for 5 years now. So I didn't see a whole lot of opportunity to, we should make reductions here and there. I just didn't see
No,
it.
They're not there.
So, obviously, the heavy lifting really is in the CIP and trying to, let's make these difficult decisions as to what we're gonna fund and what we're not. maybe there's some slight tweaks in the, in the operating budget. I just didn't see a whole lot.
No.
And I didn't feel like, nickel and diming and going, oh, let's cut
We'll-
$50 here.
We'll continue to look at the CIP next week, and when we have more data on the operating budget. And wrapping up
Yeah.
our budget discussion.
I just wanted to let everybody know that I did offer up the idea of having a capital reserve fund for DPW equipment, and it was a 50-50 split with the budget committee, just so you know. I think if we did do it, I think it would have to be earmarked towards replacement of, they were worried about vehicle creep. That, oh, if you had, $200,000 or $300,000 in a fund, oh, this is a great, skid steer, let's go buy it because it looks like it's a pretty good deal. And they were worried about that. So I think the way around that is to say, okay, here is the only time it could ever be spent is to replace a vehicle that we currently have. And nothing more than that. So I did ask them, and so that's not gonna be an easy one to put through. But then again, I was also surprised that many people on the budget committee over the years have said to me, why aren't we buying used equipment, or why are we always buying new? And so then when we offered the possibility of buying surplus or something used, it was like, oh, now we're worried about this. So
Put a new dump
correct.
on an old frame.
Right,
and
no,
then
I'm
a
saying-
year later, the frame's gone.
No, I'm saying I think we're trying some of these things, and I just,
Sue, is there anything else in the new business that you've prepared that needs to be covered? Committee reports.
I just wanted to say that in there, I had recommended the contribution holiday, and after I thought about it, the retirees are going to be so that number is not valid in my, under new business.
Do we need the new finance software to make it work?
Yeah, I think we can make it work. It's just a matter of finding out the most acceptable accounting way to do that. for this year.
So, we've already heard the Budget Committee report. Thank you, Scott.
thank you.
Library report. That was me. Is it in the packet? It wasn't.
No, there's no summary.
Defer to next week.
That's a wise decision.
Yeah.
You'd probably say that for the Park and Rec, too.
Yeah, I would.
I don't know. But, Mark?
I'm ready to go, Mr. Chair. Won't take
Yeah.
nothing but 5 minutes.
You make it 3. That's a motion. 3 of us said that.
He said he was ready to go.
Thank you, Carl.
I said the door's right there.
Yeah, all right, we're on our way out now shortly. Roy Park, the pools the Roy Park pool has been winterized, the Barnard Pool Park, still working on some leaks, pressure tests, skimmer lines. Blue Dolphin was in, they're coming in tomorrow, October 23rd. They'll try to pinpoint some of the leaks and give a quote for the repairs. The Barnard track, DPW's been in. They've cut and cracked a lot of the holes with asphalt, so they should see a big improvement there. Barnard football field, they're working on some of the problems with the field. The Goffstown High School Football Booster Club has offered up some money for some repairs to the center field. Have we had any progress with that, or are we still working on that? Okay. Equipment, mowers, end of the year, small mechanical issues, ignition switches, bearings, wheel bearings, pulleys, typical everyday use is finally catching up to us. The commission vacancy was filled, Kevin Daigle, he was the member put on the commission, and we spoke about the other one tonight, which we worked on, and that's it.
Thank you.
Just a quickie tag along. I spoke to Christy Garrison in a football game 2 weeks ago regarding, from Barnard Park to Lamson, and I also spoke to the mom of the Eagle Scout. I mean, they're ready to go. I mean, I just want to let that be known that they are ready to go, so as long as.
I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that up, because I did have a phone conversation with Attorney Drescher today, and he wanted to know if you are still planning on going forward to town meeting. Do you still want a temporary agreement and then go forward to town meeting, make it a public road? Or do you want it makes a difference in how he structures this, or do you want a formal agreement to plow Lamson Ave for that passage?
We don't have enough time this evening, but for that new subject, How quickly does he need that decision?
You can't do
He
anything without
can't,
guidance
he's at
from
a
us.
standstill till he gets that.
I thought we were doing a short term for the winter,
Originally, and
and then
then,
putting it on the ballot to accept
And then
the
what-
road. That's what I
right.
thought we were doing.
Yep.
that was
Yeah.
the motion, but then afterwards I told you how people were calling on private roads, and they want their roads to be public roads and all the road standards waived, to make theirs public
Yeah,
roads
but
also.
we're
at
doing
town
this
meeting.
through town vote, so if the voters approve Lamson as a public road, then they in turn are waiving the specifications and we're going through a town vote.
Are you sure the residents of Lamson want it declared a public road at town meeting?
We haven't heard from them on that, have we yet?
The
No,
ones that have come here said that's what they were willing to do.
I'm not so sure they are. So
Well,
I would assume
fact,
before
we
you
would-
go forward,
We
that
would
you
need
have that discussion with them.
almost documented, they're willing to do that,
Right.
because it's not
Well,
imminent for me.
Isn't it easier to say, Attorney Drescher, please prepare the short-term agreement with the purposes that we're gonna put this before the town vote. The only way that we're gonna get the agreement signed by the residents is if they're in support of it going on the warrant. And if they're not, then there is no agreement,
So-
short-term, and
So-
we're done.
Short-term agreement,
Okay.
if they all agree with it, then we know
We know we're good.
we're good for an article.
Then we're not good.
If they don't agree with it, there's no article and status quo, no change.
And the one last thing, Mr. Chair, the
Excellent.
ski and skate sale, November 3rd,
Yes.
1 o'clock.
The 20th annual ski and skate sale, formerly sponsored by Friends of the Library, is now sponsored by Friends of the Rail Trail. And, thank you,
November 3rd, correct?
3rd. November
Same,
3rd.
same as the Lions Craft Fair weekend.
And
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
in favor of the motion, indicate,
Aye.
say aye. Thank you, Andrew. You may shut off the feed to the TV land.